What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto has the most rare and special golden pelt that give him strange abilities in combat? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Not many people think highly of Naruto. They think he is an idiot who can't keep his mouth shut. Most people tend to underestimate him this way, and it served him well in the past for getting people to think positively of him. His precious Oba-chan and the man he thinks of as an older brother, Iruka, are prime examples of this. Not many people know Naruto as his real self. No one but his two children and the Hokage, who just so happens to be his Oba-chan he thinks so highly about. Now that everyone knows about this, let's get on to the story, shall we? Naruto yawned loudly while stretching his arms over his head, checking his surroundings discreetly while he made sure there was no shinobi around him before he vanished via Shunshin. Appearing a few miles away from his old spot, Naruto checked behind him before unzipping his bright orange jacket and shrugging it off. "I'm starting to despise orange," he grumbled in a smooth, soft voice, a large contrast to his normal high booming voice that caused most to cringe at the loudness of it. Once the jacket was unzipped and off his body, a new image greeted the forest where he appeared just moments before. His lean muscles shaped his youthful body into that of a quick attacker and runner, not too bulky as to compromise his speed but not subtle enough to mistake him for being weak either. What hid beneath the horrid orange jacket was not a sickly skinny boy as most believed, but a fit, young man with a flexible, strong body that any stealth master would be envious of. With a hungry lick of his lips, Naruto took off at incredible speeds deeper into the forest of death, following a well-used trail. All the animals steered clear of the blur of gold who in the past had proven to not be worth messing with, lest they be brutally and effectively disposed of. A roar broke the hushed silence of the forest and caused many birds perched on the higher branches to take to the skies in a rush of speed. With a startled squawk, up ahead of the golden blur two large figures were making themselves known. One clawed while the other bit. The overly large tiger and equally large bear fought for their territories. It isn't an uncommon thing to find in this haunted forest, the area being as small as it was while the animals were as large as they were, but it is a scary sight indeed. Naruto clicked his tongue in annoyance and skidded to a stop just outside of the tree line surrounding the large clearing of newly fallen trees and trampled shrubs. Brutes, Naruto thought with thinly veiled disgust. They have no respect whatsoever for the smaller animals trampled under their feet as they fight over something as silly as territory, especially when they know this is my land. With a snort and a roll of his eyes, Naruto pulled off his shirt and went to work unbuttoning his bright orange pants. The two large animals saw the small, lean human-looking creature and roared in hopes of intimidating him. Once his pants dropped, Naruto smirked and his body started to grow at an alarming rate. The two animals both stiffened in surprise but quickly shifted into a poised and alert position, facing the new threat with a seriousness they lacked while fighting each other. A shared glance confirmed their split-second decision to team up together, and without warning they rushed at the new, fiercer enemy. Meanwhile, Naruto continued to grow until he was the exact same size as the overly large tiger, about the size of an average house back in the village. His body rearranged, accompanied by the sickening snaps of bones being shifted to their new places and the tearing of muscle to make way for newer, stronger ones. Sleek golden fur sprouted from his furless body and he fell to all fours, now a giant golden fox with 9 white-tipped tails swishing behind him with a mind of their own. Naruto blinked open his glowing blue eyes and with a roar that shook the earth, sending the two charging animals spinning on their paws and sprinting away into the trees. Naruto gave a smooth chuckle before snapping his extended jaw twice. "It's nice to finally be in my fox form," he purred to himself before shaking out his silken golden fur, that looked like spun gold, and soundlessly took off into the large old trees that littered the land. "It has been so long since I've relaxed in my true form, although I'm not as large as I can naturally grow, but this is a close second in terms of comfort," Naruto thought as he skillfully moved through the trees like flowing water down a creek. Naruto slowed to a stop in front of a slow-moving stream and quickly lapped up some water before sniffing the air around him for danger. When he smelt no signs of pests nosing around, he crouched down low to the ground and gave a deep rumbling growl of contentment. No later than a minute passed before two red blurs smashed into the giant fox's hide. Naruto huffed in amused fondness and bent his giant head down to nuzzle lovingly at the dog-sized foxes trying to climb up his body. "Calm down, my kits, I'm here for you now," he rumbled reassuringly. They yipped happily before the cute bundle of fur with green eyes pounced on his nose and scampered onto his snout. Naruto laid down next to the stream with a content sigh and laid his head next to his yellow eyes kid, who was more shy than his littermate. Naruto purred reassuringly to the kid, and so the yellow-eyed fox shyly joined his littermate in cuddling up to the golden-furred fox. A rustle in the distance caused Naruto's ears to flicker towards the trees. He lifted his head with narrowed eyes that glowed eerily in the darkness of the forest of death. A growl of warning slipped from his snarling snout, his lips pulled back to flash pearly white fangs as sharp as kunai. His kits scrambled off of him and hid behind his forepaws. From the branches above dropped a stunned purple-haired woman who dressed rather inappropriately in fishnet covered by a simple coat. Naruto carefully placed a large paw in front of his two kits and slowly dragged himself into a crouch over his young ones. The purple-haired woman seemed to snap out of her daze when he moved and slowly raised her hands as a sign of peace, showing him her lack of drawn weapons. Naruto swiftly picked his kits up using two of his tails, safely wrapping them in his fur for protection while leaving him the option to attack without harming his kits. When Naruto begun to slowly back away, the purple-haired woman looked alarmed and quickly called out before he could make his escape. Wait, she barked, causing Naruto to growl at her in warning. Sorry, calm down. You have 9 tails, so that means you're the 9-tailed fox that attacked our village, right? Naruto narrowed his eyes at her and decided to humor her for a moment more. No, Ni-san is an idiot for letting himself be controlled by that red-eyed devil, but I am no fox that attacks without reason, he said calmly but with a criticizing eye. The woman looked shocked that Naruto spoke to her before she nodded slowly as the information made its way into her brain. Wait a second, you're the Kyuubi's younger brother? I thought it was just a mass of chakra that has the mind of an animal? Naruto rolled his glowing eyes and snorted at her in annoyance. No, he is a fox demon just as I am. We have larger stores of chakra than any other being on this earth, and it's true we do not run out of it, but we do not harm humans needlessly. The Byujin you talk about are simply different types of demons that have been caught by you humans in your greedy quest for power. That poor one-tailed Sand-kun was driven insane by you humans. You can never hope to control us demons. We have free will just as you do. He felt silly lecturing the woman, but he got over it quickly when he noticed she was about to take a step forward. What do you want from me? If you wish to take my kits, I will destroy you and your village. I will leave no survivors. Unlike my brother, his ears pinned to his head in a display of aggression. The woman was quick to try and salvage the situation before it went south. Look, I was training in the forest and just so happened to stumble upon you. I won't speak a word about you to anyone, I swear. Naruto's narrowed eyes squinted even further in anger. Your petty promises hold no sway to me and my kits. You humans have a habit of breaking promises, the woman scowled angrily. Oh yeah? And are you demons or any better? She sneered while Naruto scoffed. Of course. Unlike you humans, we demons are bound by our words. Once a promise is made, we cannot go back unless we want our lives ruined by the goddess who created our race. That is why we do not throw promises out recklessly, he explained with a snarl. The woman looked genuinely shocked before she sighed and nodded. Fine, look, if I break this promise you have permission to bite off my arm. I will not deceive you, fox. Naruto reluctantly nodded before lowering his upper body in a small bow, then straightening out his slender legs. He carefully placed his kits down on the ground before stepping forward. They yipped curiously, looking up at their guardian for guidance. Naruto bowed his head to his kits in acceptance and licked their heads in encouragement. They yipped happily as they bounced over towards the woman. Naruto's body tensed when they got close enough for striking range, and he only relaxed when she let herself be tackled by the kits and licked on the face. 2 hours passed with the kits playing with the woman who looked so happy she could stay with them forever. Naruto smiled fondly at his 2 kits playing before looking up into the sky through the leaves of the high trees. It nears nightfall. Woman, I suggest you leave this forest. The animals are much more dangerous at night, for they hunt for food at this hour. The purple-haired woman looked up from the ground where she was wrestling playfully with the 2 kits. My name is Anko, you know. I'll leave as soon as I say goodbye to your kits. Naruto nodded in understanding, then rose gracefully to his paws. It has been a pleasure meeting you, Anko. If you ever wish to take a break from your shinobi life and play with us in the forest, you only need to call. I shall give you this, and if you ever need me I will come. Just pump chakra into it, Naruto explained while handing over a pitch-black stone in the shape of a fox head that appeared in a swirl of golden light. Anko beamed happily at him, then took the fox head and crouched down to the baby foxes. Hey kits, look what I got. I can meet you more often now, they yipped happily and jumped up to lick her face. She laughed, then stood up after petting their heads one last time and turned towards Naruto. She bowed deeply, and when she straightened she had tears in her eyes. Thank you, Fox. You have given me a place to relax when my village will not even give me a livable place to stay. You have no idea how much I will treasure this meeting and the ones to come. Naruto smiled at the woman's earnestness, which made the large golden fox look like a shining god on earth. That is good, we are now friends and I am bound by my word. I shall aid you in any way you need, and in exchange. Will you be my new kit? Her eyes watered, and with a trembling lip she nodded furiously and ran over to the fox, wrapping her arms around Naruto's leg, and cried happily. Yes, Papa, she sobbed, wetting the soft golden locks of fur pressed to her face. Naruto purred reassuringly at her and placed his other paw gently on her back while he nuzzled her head. You are now my family, and I keep no secrets from my family. Kid, I am over 7,000 years old, but I have the body of a 15-year-old boy in your village. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I am a 9-tailed demon fox. As he spoke, his body started to shrink. Anko pulled away and watched in fascination as his body shifted into the form of a lean 15-year-old boy with spiky golden hair and bright blue eyes with 3 whisker marks on each cheek. She flushed when she noticed he was wearing no form of clothing, since his briefs were ripped to shreds when he shifted. This is my human form. I may look younger and weaker than you, but I am on par with my brother, who is ironically sealed inside my stomach. He made his seal visible and smiled softly when Anko peered curiously at the many seals designed to keep Kurama at bay. The 9-tailed fox that attacked your village is named Kurama. He is my older brother by a few minutes, but sadly our littler mates did not survive the first winter in the demon world. Many were killed while others died of natural causes, but Kurama and I made it out by sticking together, and we continued to do so as we grew in both power and size. The fox form you saw me in was smaller than what my normal demon form looks like, because I do not want the village to go into a panic if they ever saw another 9-tailed fox. Anko nodded in understanding, then grinned happily. No matter what form you will be in, you are still my new papa. Thank you so much for taking me into your family. This has been bugging me for a while, but are these your real kits? Naruto nodded, then looked over towards his wrestling kits. No, I did not birth them, but they are still my kits by default. They have bonded to me and see me as their guardian. They are my brother's kits, but because his mate died during birth and he was sealed, he asked me to look after them. They are now 15 years old and still growing. Anko smiled sadly, then looked back over at Naruto. At least they still have someone to look after them. Naruto smiled, relieved that she understood but still adored them. Now for my other secret, I am what's known as a Omega. I am male, yet I can give birth if I wish. So technically I am more of your mama than your papa. Anko's jaw dropped in shock before her face lit up in amusement, then wonder. So can I call you mama instead? Naruto rolled his eyes but shrugged nonetheless. You may call me whatever you like. You must rush back to the village if you do not want to be eaten on your way back. Anko looked a little worried, but she steeled her nerves and looked into Naruto's eyes. Mama, can I stay here with you and the kids from now on? Naruto smiled warmly and gave a swift nod. Yes, my kid, they will be happy to snuggle with their new older sister. Come now, we must retreat to the cave. Naruto shifted quickly into his fox form before he picked up the kits by their scruff and bent down so Anko could climb onto his back. Once everyone was settled and the 2 kits in his mouth stopped wriggling, he set off into the trees towards the deepest part of the forest. Once they reached their destination, Anko was surprised to find a large cave carved into the wall of a cliff. Naruto trotted inside and used chakra at the pads of his paws to glide down the steep slope to where the nest of dried leaves and twigs was set up. The kits both yawned and curled up to one another when they were placed in the nest, but they did not fall asleep. Instead, they looked up at their mother and new sister expectingly. Naruto let Anko climb off his back before he curled around his kits and wrapped his tail around Anko when she got settled against the kits and his warm belly. Anko yawned tiredly before looking over at Naruto. I expected a bed of leaves and sticks to be uncomfortable, but it's surprisingly comfy and warm. Naruto nodded and rested his head next to his 3 kits. Only the best for my young. He made sure his kits were fast asleep before he curled his tails around himself and fell asleep as well. Tsunade is Hokage before the Chunin exams because the old one retired early after a battle that stuffed up his hip. Tsunade was called in, and after she was begged by her former sensei to become the 5th Hokage, she accepted to honor her husband's dream. A week after becoming Naruto's kit, Anko woke up to the nice feel of warmth all around her. Her mind was slow to wake up, but when it did, Anko beamed in happiness when she saw her little brothers and her mama curled around her for warmth. The past few days were spent in the forest getting to know her now family, and although they never moved from the cave, Anko knew her siblings were powerful. She took a moment to bask in the warmth her family provided before she looked up at her mother, only to be startled when she saw those big glowing blue eyes focused on her. "So you have awoken," he whispered. Anko beamed up at her mama and quickly wrapped her arms as far around his neck as they would go. Naruto purred happily and gently nuzzled her and his other 2 kits awake. They yawned cutely before crawling over to Anko and resting their sleepy heads on her knees. She wrapped her arms around them and leant against Naruto's stomach. "I never want to wake up alone ever again," Anko whispered to herself. Naruto smiled fondly before nudging them all to their feet before he himself stood up and stretched. "Come, young ones, we must go hunting before Anko and I return to the village." The kits whined sadly but nodding and crawling up the steep slope to the mouth of the cave. Anko was shocked to find they were using chakra to climb. Naruto saw her shock and chuckled lightly. "I have been training them since they no longer needed my milk. The more chakra you have, the harder it is to control, and their stores are as large as a sage's. They need more control, so I am teaching them the art of hunting in the trees while they hold numerous leaves to their bodies and shift them around." To say Anko was impressed would be a huge understatement. She quickly scampered up after Naruto when she noticed he was now halfway up the slope. "Come, Anko, we must train you as well." She nodded eagerly before racing off to go join her brothers further ahead. Naruto sniffed the air to smell for their newest hunt before smirking to himself. The large bear from yesterday is in his territory. He trotted lazily after the kits while keeping a sharp eye when they attached leaves to their bodies and started to move them all over their lean muscled bodies while Anko did the same. Naruto studied their movements when they jumped into the trees and started to silently hop from tree to tree. He kept a safe distance away so as to not scare away the prey, but still close enough to intervene if things got out of hand. The kits and Anko jumped from tree to tree with great speed while still keeping their leaves moving. Anko looked curiously towards the 2 kits beside her and was impressed to see their coordination in which they moved. Further up ahead was the large bear, so the 3 kits slowed to a stop and waited for the perfect time to strike. The kid with green eyes tapped Anko on her arm, causing her to look over at the kit. The green-eyed kid then tapped her head with the tip of his tail, causing Anko to smother a gasp when hunting techniques flooded her brain and suddenly she understood their positioning. She nodded with fire blazing in her eyes, excited for the first hunt with her siblings. They surrounded the giant bear quietly and swiftly before they all jumped at the bear together and latched onto parts of his body. The green-eyed fox bit down hard on the bear's neck while the yellow-eyed kid latched onto its front leg, right on a pressure point, forcing the beast's legs to go limp and for it to stumble just as Anko pierced the same pressure point on the other leg. The beast roared in anger at being immobilized before flailing its head to try and crush one of them with its jaw. The kits steered clear of the snapping jaws as they made their way to its neck and tore at the flesh with vigor. The beast roared one last time before collapsing and dying, becoming food for the earth and the 3 kits. Anko ripped off a large chunk of bear meat before starting up a fire and cooking it while the 3 foxes tore into the meal happily. Naruto ate everything that his kits couldn't before he left with his kits towards the cave. "I don't want you kits to leave this cave, do you hear me?" The 2 kits nodded sadly while Anko frowned. "Why can't they come to the village?" Naruto sighed heavily and looked towards his 2 fox kits. "I wish they could, but they are simply too large for normal foxes and I do not have the time to look after them while I'm with my team." Anko's face lit up with an idea. "How about I look after my brothers? I'm older and I can tell the Hokage that they are nin foxes and I've been training them in the Forest of Death." As long as they don't cause any harm to the villagers, the council can't say a word of argument about them and the shinobi won't care at all. Naruto twirled the suggestion around his mind before making the mistake of looking down at his two younger kits. The full force of the puppy eye no jutsu slammed into his heart and he couldn't resist its hold any longer. Fine, but promise me you won't get into trouble, he said with a sigh of defeat. The kits puffed out their chests and yipped with the most serious face Anko has seen on the kits. She then remembered what a promise was to demons and vowed to never go back on her word. Naruto nodded before looking over at Anko with a stern eye. Look after your siblings or I will ground you, no missions and no hunts. You will be forced to stay in the cave for a week. Anko nodded happily then turned to her younger brothers. You're gonna come to the village with your big sister. They yipped happily before pouncing on top of her. Naruto smiled fondly then started to walk to the gates. Very well, I will take you straight to the Hokage's office to let her know what's going on. Anko wanted to voice out that no one could get into the Hokage's office without being seen, but she went with her mama anyway, trusting that the 7,000-something-year-old could deal with a little stealth. She noticed he started to shrink, but he didn't change shape. Then when he was the same size of a large nin hound, he touched them all with one of his tails and shunshined to the office. They all appeared where their mama said they would, in the Hokage's office. The woman woke with a start with a piece of paper stuck to her face, and as soon as she saw the large golden fox she let out a happy smile and yawned. Naruto, how can I help you? And your kits? She said as soon as she noticed the two kits that jumped onto her desk and started licking her face. Tsunade giggled happily before shooing them away and finally noticing Anko. At first the Hokage looked confused, then she looked over at the fox sitting calmly on her floor. What's going on? She asked in a serious voice. Naruto calmly looked around the office before settling his eyes on his family, and suddenly love bloomed in his glowing blue eyes. Meet the new member of my family, Anko. She has been accepted into the Kitsune family and will be looking after her siblings under the illusion of them being nin fox that she trained in the Forest of Death. Is that all right with you? The Hokage sighed before nodding. Yeah, that's fine. So what are their names? Tsunade asked tiredly. Naruto frowned as he looked at her. You have not been doing your homework, I see. Kitsune do not get their names until they have grown 2 tails. Sometimes the kits never have more than 1 tails, and that brings shame to the family line, but my kits are strong. They will grow at least 4 tails by the time they hit 30 years old. Their second tail should be growing soon. For now you can call them Green and Yellow. Those will be their code names until they have reached their second tail. The Hokage, Anko and the 2 kits nodded in understanding. Alright, that's good enough. Naruto, you need to shift and get changed. Your lazy sensei will be giving out the forms for the Chunin exams today, since the exams are actually tomorrow. Anko gasped happily before hugging Naruto, making the fox chuckle and nuzzle her hair. Mama, I'm gonna be your second exam instructor. Yay! She giggled happily while rubbing her face in her mother's soft fur. Naruto licked her cheek before started to shift into his human form. Anko pulled back when she felt soft skin instead of soft fur and smiled warmly at the younger form of her mother. Naruto, I know you're good looking for a kid, but put on some pants, will you? Tsunade yelled before throwing her paperweight at him. Naruto caught it swiftly before placing it back on the table and snapping his fingers. An orange pair of pants found their way onto his legs from nowhere. Anko's eyes widened before they narrowed in disgust. Mama, I love you and everything, but those pants are horrible. That's it, I'm taking you and the kits out shopping. No mother of mine is going to wear that monstrosity. Anko declared before she grabbed her mother's arms and the kits' tails before vanishing. They appeared in the shinobi shopping district that no civilian could get into. Unfortunately for the shirtless Naruto, they also appeared right in the middle of the road, so everyone turned to look at them when they heard the kits yip in surprise at having their tails grabbed. Naruto could feel the stares boring into his back, so he turned his eyes to Anko with a stern expression. Anko, I appreciate you taking me out to get some new clothes, but did you have to appear in the middle of the road? Anko looked around before laughing and looking back at her mother's stern eyes. Her smile dropped and a sheepish expression appeared on her face. No mama, she whispered. Naruto sighed and rolled his eyes before looking around at the stores, ignoring the stares he was given. We need to find a place that sells protective gear for the kits as well as shinobi gear, he said as he started walking. Anko smiled at being let off easy and stroked her siblings' fur in apology for grabbing their tails. Wait for us, she shouted as she jogged after the golden-haired teen whose pants rode low on his hips. Anko smirked when she saw all the lustful looks on the shinobi's faces when her mama walked past them. They finally found a shop that sold both shinobi gear and nin animal gear. With an exited squeal, Anko pulled her siblings and her mother inside the shop to begin looking. The shop owner, a gruff-looking man with a scar on his cheek, looked over at them and just stared at Naruto. Anko zipped through the shop picking up anything that looked useful but stylish while Naruto stood back with his kits flanking his sides, rubbing up against his legs while glaring at the shopkeeper in a way that clearly said, "Back off." Anko finally returned with an arms full of clothing and weapons before she dragged Naruto into the changing room. The kids finally started to look around in fascination considering they have never been in a store before. Just like their mother was to them, they were fiercely protective of the unmated Omega. After a good hour of changing cloths, Naruto stumbled out of the dressing room looking exhausted but wearing something that made the shopkeeper's eyes widen. Naruto now donned a skin-tight black long-sleeved shirt with a high neck to hide the flawless skin on his neck. Skin-tight turtleneck, with a pair of black Anbu pants with white tape on his left thigh, and lastly he wore steel-capped Converse boots. His weapons pouch stuck snugly to his hips with a hidden kunai in both his boots and a golden-handled katana strapped to his back peeking over his right shoulder. Anko snatched the kits and fitted them both with a protective jacket. Anko skipped out after her mother happily and paid for 4 pares of the same clothes Naruto was wearing and the kits' protective wear. "Come on, green, yellow. We need to accompany Mama to his team meeting spot," Anko said happily while the kits yipped and pranced around their mama. Naruto smiled and smoothed out his ruffled hair before walking out of the store after a quick thank you to the shop assistant. Anko and the kits bounced after Naruto, causing many people to stare at them oddly. As the shinobi bleed into civilians, the group of 4 sped up to escape the confused but angry glares of the insolent civilians. The first person that Naruto personally knew that popped up out of nowhere was Kiba, following after Akamaru, who barked warnings to the 2 kits who snarled in return, looking much more furious than the small white and brown puppy that charged towards them. The kits went to assert their dominance over the foolish puppy, but a soft growl from Naruto froze them in their tracks. Then looked over towards their mama and whined while Naruto, for the first time, turned towards Akamaru and stated his higher position by growling in warning at the pup, who skidded to a stop with his tail between his legs and ducking behind a stunned Kiba. Kiba slowed to a stop a few feet in front of Naruto and looked at him for the first time, a warm blush growing on his face at the beautiful male standing before him clad in black. Naruto smiled calmly at Kiba, not really wanting to act like a fool in front of his kits since it would just confuse them with the childish way their mother would be acting. "It has been a while, Kiba. I haven't seen you since the sorting of our genin teams." Kiba stared hard at Naruto before a shocked expression broke through his blushing face. Naruto?" Naruto nodded as he crouched down and held out his hand to Akumaru. "Hey there, Akumaru, I'm sorry I scared you. Come say hello to green and yellow." At the sound of their mama's voice, the 2 fox kits bounced over towards him and nuzzled his chest. Akumaru peeked out from behind Kiba's legs and slowly crawled over towards Naruto, dragging his belly along the ground in a show of submission. Kiba watched in shocked fascination as Akumaru crawled over to Naruto and only lifted himself from the ground to sniff at his hand, then nuzzle it. The kits turned their heads towards the puppy nuzzling their mama's hand and growled in warning, causing Akumaru to glare at them and lick Naruto's hand to mock their warning. The kits were about to pounce, but the smooth chuckle that never ceased to calm them down rumbled from their mother's chest, so they stood down and just watched Akumaru study Naruto curiously. Akumaru finally steeled his nerves and took a step closer to the 2 kits protecting their mother's chest. The kits tensed but didn't do anything as Akumaru slowly made his way closer to the mother of the 2 fox kits. Once he reached Naruto's chest and his arms wrapped around his small body protectively, Akumaru nuzzled and licked his chest and neck, not minding the pesky fabric that got in his way. Akumaru looked up at Naruto with wide brown eyes and whined lowly. "Mother?" Naruto chuckled at his inquiry and scratched at his ear, causing his tail to wag happily. "I'll be whatever you want me to be," Naruto whispered quietly into the puppy's ear, causing him to bark and lick at his face in joy. Naruto pulled back and stood up after giving one last pet to the puppy and kits. Akumaru whined while pawing at his leg. Sorry pup, I got to get to the bridge. My team is waiting, Naruto said softly and with a sad smile. Kiba cleared his throat after picking his jaw off the ground and picked up the whining pup. Yeah, sorry for keeping you up. Naruto flashed him a smile before walking past him and towards his meeting spot. It's no problem, Kiba. Kiba shivered as he quickly rushing off to go meet up with his own team. Anko giggled cheekily while wrapping her arms around her mother. Someone likes you, Tilda, she teased, causing Naruto to smile fondly. Oh Anko, you have not even seen my Kitsune charm in action. Being an Omega has its perks after all, Anko grunted in surprise before peering down at her mother. Kitsune charm? Naruto nodded. A Kitsune charm is only released by an unmated Omega. It draws alphas to the Omega to be mated. Most Kitsune need only one mate to be satisfied, but once you reach 9 tails your powers will need to be split up between many mates to keep it in balance, that is unless you have a powerful mate. Since I'm unmated my powers are rather unstable, so I don't use them much since they could easily go out of control. The Kitsune charm works like this. The first stage is the Omega giving off pheromones. The second stage is to be forced into a heat that lasts for about a week and can be very potent if you have waited for a long time, such as I have. The pheromones will attract strong alphas while dispelling weak betas and alphas, so they don't give me a weak litter. The third stage is once you have found a mate and have gone through a trial to see if they are strong enough to give you a strong litter, you will give them a mating mark, and once you have given that mating mark, a small portion of the Omega's powers will be transferred to the Alpha to give him more potency and strength to keep the Omega happy and safe. After his long explanation, Naruto looked over at Anko, whose eyes were wide and jaw hanging open. Of course you will never see my Kitsune charm in action since you will not be there for it. I'm an Omega, therefore I am built to mate with males, not females. I will always be the submissive in the relationship. Anko nodded numbly before looking down at the kits. So is one of the kits an Omega? She asked curiously. Naruto chuckled and ran a hand through their soft fur. No, yellow is a beta while green is an alpha. It's rather rare to meet an Omega considering the littler is made up mostly of betas and alphas, and it is more likely that an Omega dies before hitting puberty than it surviving. I was rather lucky to be alive, but that is thanks to my brother. Anko breathed out a heavy sigh. Well, you learn new things every day. Naruto nodded, then blinked in shock and looked over at Anko. You might actually see my Kitsune charm in affect after all. An Omega Kitsune can give other marks besides just mating marks. If a kid is abandoned or its mother dies, an Omega can welcome it into her litter by giving the kid a mark that changes the chances of the kid surviving from unlikely to definitely. The mark can only be given during a Kitsune's heat, just like the mating mark, but this mark changes the kid entirely. Once the mark is given, a human can become a Kitsune by blood, and an abandoned kid can become blood brothers with the Omega's litter. It essentially forces the creature's body to become the Omega's biological kid, so they will feel compelled to provide for them. Anko then decided to trip over her own feet and faceplant into the dirt. She looked up at her mother with hope in her eyes. If you ever go into heat, can I become your real kit? Naruto's smile softened as he crouched down and ran his fingers through her disheveled hair. Of course, it will only make you more of my kit than you already are. My brother has asked me to do the same for his kits so I can become their real mother considering she is gone from this world. Anko's smile was blinding. She wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and buried her face in his chest. Thank you so much, Mama. She sobbed in joy, so Naruto scooped her up and jumped away before she was seen. They landed on the red bridge, and with a quick look around to make sure no one had arrived yet, Naruto and his kits huddled up together and the 3 kits fell asleep against their mother. Naruto started to drift in and out of sleep with his kits in his arms when a loud high-pitched screech woke everyone up with a start. Naruto, you baka. It was Sakura. Sakura stomped over to the startled 4 before going to smack Naruto on the head like she normally does when she finds him sleeping. The kits only saw the immediate danger, and so Yellow lunged for her throat while Green chomped down on her hand. Sakura gave off a shrill scream before falling onto her ass when Yellow landed on her chest and knocked her down. He went to wrap his jaws around her neck, but Anko was quick enough to grab the scruff of his neck and pull him back while Naruto eased Green's jaws from Sakura's trembling hand. Naruto sighed and sent his kits a stern look before shifting his eyes towards Sakura. I'm so sorry, Sakura. Their mind was fogged, and when they saw you about it hit me, they didn't think. The pink-haired banshee screamed as she cried and clutched her injured hand to her chest. Anko gently pried the hand away and started healing the wound. As if on cue, Kakashi appeared with an excuse for being late, but before he could even start he noticed the scene in front of him. Sasuke walked from out behind a tree, but the others didn't even think about what he was doing behind it and focused their attention on Sakura. "Oh, calm down, you cry baby. It's all healed up now," Anko said gruffly, with annoyance thick in her sleepy voice. Her cheeks were red and her eyes puffy from crying before she fell asleep, but everyone wisely chose to ignore it. "That fucking thing bit my hand." Before Naruto could calm himself down, a growl ripped through his throat and rumbled in his chest. "Thing?" he growled out in anger. Sakura took a shaky step back when she saw Naruto's angry eyes piercing into her. "Those kids aren't things, you ungrateful brat. Humans are selfish creatures with no heart." Naruto took a step forward and jammed his finger into her chest, which made Sakura flinch but her anger grow. "You stupid baka. You're human too, you disgusting pig." Naruto snarled in her face while his eyes slowly started to glow and his irises thinned to slits. "Filthy humans like you should not exist. You think you're the top of the food chain, huh? Think again, bitch, because no matter how hard you humans try, you will never be able to reach our level of power." Naruto's voice boomed with anger and rage. A small amount of ki started to leak out of his shaking form. Anko quickly grabbed Naruto's arm and pulled him back towards the snarling kids. "Mama, stop. You're causing a scene and you're scaring me. Mama, please stop," Anko begged weakly. Naruto turned his attention to Anko immediately when he smelt the salty scent of tears on her face. Naruto sighed and wrapped his arms around her shaking shoulders. "Sorry kid, I'm on edge since your brothers are not safe in the den. Mama's here, so don't worry," Naruto whispered softly into her ear. Sasuke and Sakura tried to listen in on what he said but couldn't hear, whereas Kakashi's eye widened and his mouth dropped open behind his mask. "Mama?" he whispered to himself in shock. His mind spun with questions, but no matter how hard he tried he could not figure out the answers. The two fox kids nuzzled their older sister in reassurance, then tugged at their mama's pants. "I'm sorry, take your brothers and go. I'm calm now and I will sort everything out." Anko nodded into his shoulder before sniffling and pulling back to plant a soft kiss to her mama's cheek before she jumped away with her reluctant siblings. Naruto cleared his throat and turned to the other members of his team. "I'm sorry I lost control, it will not happen again, and I apologize for the things I said to you, Sakura." Sakura sniffled, then ran off to go back home to cry to herself. Naruto sighed, then turned to Kakashi. "You were about to give us the permission slips for the Chunin exams, I believe?" Kakashi nodded numbly, then handed out papers to both Naruto and Sasuke, who looked curious but still brooding as usual. Naruto took a deep breath to calm himself down further but regretted it soon after when the musky scent that came from Kakashi drifted into his nose and caused his prick to twitch. Naruto immediately covered his nose as a blush worked its way onto his cheeks. "Oh God, not now." Naruto whimpered pathetically before pulling out a spray bottle from nowhere and sprayed Kakashi with its substance. Kakashi blinked in surprise before looking down at Naruto from his perch on the railing. Naruto uncovered his nose slowly and took a small whiff of Kakashi's scent before quickly spraying him again. "What the hell are you doing, Dobi?" Sasuke asked in annoyance. Naruto looked over at him with watering eyes. "Kakashi-sensei smells bad," he whined before going back to spraying their teacher, who looked offended. "I don't smell like anything. I use a scentless soap that hides my scent," Kakashi argued, making Naruto's eyes widen. "Well, I can still smell you. Buy a new soap, you cheapskate." "Fuck, I gotta go." Naruto went to leap away, but Kakashi appeared in front of him and blocked his escape. Unfortunately, Naruto crashed right into his sensei chest and got a face full of his mouth-watering scent even underneath all that artificial rose smell. Naruto's cheeks blazed in embarrassment when he felt the back of his pants become wet with his slick and his start to throb. Oh shit, I didn't mean to start my heat, but fucking hell, he smells so good," Naruto thought in dismay. "Naruto, I have some questions I need you to answer, so you're coming with me to the Hokage's office," he declared sternly before wrapping his arms around Naruto's waist and vanishing in a puff of smoke. Sasuke was left there glaring at the spot his teammate and his sensei were standing not even a minute ago. Kakashi and Naruto appeared in front of the Hokage's door, so Kakashi decided to knock politely. Naruto whimpered when he felt his slick dribble down the inside of his thighs. "Come in," called the Hokage while she hid her sake. Kakashi pushed open the door and went to let go of Naruto, but before he could even move away, Naruto latched onto his arm with a bruising grip. "Tsunade," Naruto whined as Kakashi walked them into the office littered with paperwork. The blonde woman looked up from her paper and gasped when she saw Naruto's state. She quickly covered her nose when his repelling scent hit her full force, warning her to stay away from the Omega going into heat. She quickly jumped to her feet and dragged Naruto away from Kakashi. Naruto panted and whined while shifted uncomfortably. "Shit, over 7,000 years old and now you choose to go into heat. Your exams start tomorrow, but now you're reduced to a horny fox who can't wait to get mounted." Naruto whined at the dirty talk and lay down on the sofa awkwardly. "Hokage-sama, what's going on?" Tsunade turned her worried eyes to Kakashi and frowned. "I'm not sure, he just suddenly went into heat. He said he only goes into heat if he decides to turn on his kitsune charm." She explained briefly before turning her attention back to the squirming boy on her sofa. "Naruto, can you tell me what's going on here?" Naruto moaned before shoving his face into the sofa and mumbling out something as his ears tinted pink. "Say that again, without your face shoved into the sofa." Tsunade ground out in annoyance. The only thing she really hated in the world was when her loved ones were suffering but she couldn't help them. Naruto turned his head to the side while pulling his knees to his chest. "I've waited too long to bear kids, so my body decided to force me into heat whenever I smelt the first unmated alpha male nearby," Naruto explained between pants and moans. Tsunade straightened out her back before clearing her throat awkwardly and looking over towards Kakashi. Well, you see, Naruto is actually a demon fox. He's older than anyone in this village and you have forced him into his heat. He's what the Kitsune call an Omega, which is the ultimate baby maker of their race. He went into heat because apparently you can fuck him up good and give him a healthy batch of babies in the oven." Kakashi blinked owlishly before his eyes shifted over to Naruto, who squirmed under the gaze. "So, Naruto is actually a demon older than anyone in the village?" Tsunade blinked in confusion before nodding slowly. "So he's not actually 15 years old?" Again Tsunade nodded her head. "Okay. Naruto is the bitch of his demon race that's older than me and can have babies. He is also in heat. Anything else?" Tsunade shrugged stupidly before snapping her fingers. "Oh, I remember something Naruto once said to me about kitsune mating. During the heat the Omega is in so much bliss that it becomes painful, and the only way to ease the pain is to mate with an alpha, which is what you are, by the way. So basically a strong alpha male needs to have with Naruto or he's in for a week of excruciating pain. The pain also intensifies the longer he waits to be mated." Tsunade sighed in relief before snapping her eyes over to Naruto when he gave off a pained whine. "Wait a second, Naruto has never gone into heat before, so does that mean he's an ancient virgin?" Tsunade snorted in amusement when Naruto growled at her before whining. "Oh right, sorry. Who do you think will willingly have with you for about a week?" she asked as she turned her eyes towards Naruto, who cried out in pleasure and started to shake as he clawed at the sofa. "I don't fucking know. Just get me something to fuck me now or I'm gonna die," he screamed out desperately, causing Kakashi and Tsunade to jump in fright and scramble around the room in a panic. "I don't know who would have with a young man like you. No one wants to be branded that guy who had with a 15-year-old child." Tsunade screamed in panic. Naruto grunted in annoyance before his body started to grow. It didn't lose its lean muscles or the slender build, but his hair grew out. He grew taller and his leftover baby fat burned away into lean muscle. Naruto bit at his plump lip before clawing at the sofa again. Tsunade stopped to stare at the older version of the golden-haired 15-year-old kid she cherished as a loved one. He now looked like a beautiful 25-year-old with hair that reached down to the small of his back and framed his face perfectly. Tsunade breathed out a stunned breath of air before thinking that even a god would be envious of the beauty this Omega possessed. Kakashi skidded to a halt at the foot of the couch and raked his eyes over the stunning creature writhing in pleasure on the Hokage's couch. When Naruto shifted his long legs, Kakashi got a look at the boy's ass for the first time today and was confused to find a wet patch on the back of them. "Did he wet his pants or something, because there's a wet patch on his ass?" he said stupidly. Naruto flushed further in embarrassment and arousal when Kakashi saw his slick. "Of course he didn't piss his pants, you baka. That's called slick, and it helps the male push in without needing to prepare the omega first. Think of it as self-made lubricant he creates when he's horny. Tsunade explained in annoyance before sighing and bending down to look at Naruto's flushed face and glowing eyes. Look, I know it hurts, Naruto, but you just got to hang in there for a little while longer while I figure out something to do. Or someone to do you. She snickered a little at her joke before getting serious and rushing over to her desk. I created a fail-safe in case you went into heat randomly and you have no one who is willing to mate with you. Tsunade flushed in embarrassment before picking up a long box from her hidden drawer and walked back over to Naruto. I know it's not much and it will still hurt a lot, but at least this will ease the pain just a little. I'm gonna take you to your apartment now, okay? Naruto nodded with tears of frustration streaming down his flushed cheeks. Please help me, he begged pathetically before being scooped up into the Hokage's arms and they jumped out of the window. Kakashi frowned, then looked down at his pants to find an aching tent waiting to be dealt with. To be honest, the only reason he didn't offer to help Naruto was because he was afraid. Afraid that Naruto would reject him and his feelings for the boy, because even if Naruto is a demon, Kakashi couldn't just stop loving him, and that scared him. Kakashi was shaken out of his thoughts when the Hokage appeared in the room with a teared look on her face. Poor boy, he will be in agony by the end of the day. To be honest, that toy I gave him will only work for a little while before his body starts to really crave the real thing. She muttered as she sat down on her desk with her face in her hands. She was the very image of a tired old woman. Won't his smell attract mates to him? He asked in hopes that he was right and that Naruto could ease his suffering. Tears sprung to the Hokage's eyes, which alarmed the silver-haired sensei. After a certain point, his scent will start to spread out to the whole village, and any male who is unmated will come and force him into mating with them. His body would be poisoned by all the different sperm he is forced to take, and it will give him a weak litter. The kids would not survive the first day, and if they do, they would be weak and crippled for the rest of their lives. Naruto knows this, and that's why he was crying so much. He's afraid no alpha would want to mate with him willingly, so that their mixed sense will chase away the other suitors while they mate, but now that he's alone, he will not be strong enough during his heat to reject all the unsuited mates. I can't help him since I'm only female, and females can't help others during their heat. The Hokage started to sob. He may be older than me, but he's gone through so much heartache that I just wanted to stop. I'm afraid a failed litter will crush his spirit and he will exist only as an empty shell. Kakashi frowned, then took in a deep breath before letting it out. And if I mate with him, what will happen? The Hokage looked up at him with glossy eyes, frightened to feel hope. Your mixed sense will repel any unmated male close by, and he will mark you as his mate for life. You will be given a longer lifespan to share with him his life, and you will give him healthy kids to nurse and raise. Kakashi bit his lip, then looked into the Hokage's old eyes. What's the chances of him rejecting me? The Hokage frowned in confusion before understanding, lit her eyes up. 0%. You were originally the one who started his heat, so he will accept you without a doubt. The only catch is when you mate for a week, Naruto will mark you as his lifelong mate and he will be bound to be your lover for the rest of your lives. Kakashi nodded in understanding before he walked over to the window. I'll mate with him. Is it possible to postpone the exams until his heat is over? With the Hokage's nod, Kakashi leapt out of the office window and sped his way towards his mate-to-be's apartment. Kakashi picked the lock before slipping inside and locking it back up behind him. He followed the sounds of whimpers and moans to Naruto's surprisingly clean bedroom and saw the most erotic sight he will ever see in his perverted life. Naruto was naked on his hands and knees with a red dildo shoved up his dripping asshole and his nimble fingers working it in and out to gain friction frantically. Kakashi made his way slowly towards the bed and sat down on the edge, causing the mattress to dip. Naruto whined loudly when he felt the dip in his mattress, but he never stopped the movement of his hand. Instead, he lifted his head and looked over his shoulder to find his sensei sitting on his bed watching him with lusty eyes. Naruto closed his eyes and cried out in pleasure when the dildo bumped his prostate. Kakashi moved up silently behind his golden-haired student before wrapping his long fingers around the base of the red object. Naruto shuddered in pleasure when he felt the cool touch of his sensei touching his bare skin. Kakashi's face heated up with a warm blush as he ran his fingers along Naruto's sweaty skin. He felt every dip and curve before he ran his fingers over Naruto's stomach and felt it tense and quiver before he slipped his hand further down and gripped his student's aching arousal. In a movement too quick for the silver-haired shinobi's eyes to see, he was flipped onto his back with no clothes on, not even his headband or mask. Naruto straddled his hips and ground his erection against Kakashi's own while his hungry lips crashed into Kakashi's. Naruto whined into the kiss while he quickened his thrusting, and before he knew it he had blown his load. Sadly, his erection was still there. Kakashi chuckled and flipped their position. "Easy there, Naruto." Naruto shivered in pleasure as the husky voice washed over his senses. "Kakashi, please. I need you inside me now," Naruto moaned out before grinding his groin up into Kakashi's. Kakashi smirked down at Naruto, finding him to be the cutest creature in the world before he yanked out the toy still inside his soon-to-be mate and replaced it with his own throbbing. Naruto threw his head back and cried out as he came for a second time since Kakashi got there. Kakashi grunted at the tightness of his student's wet hole before he started to thrust. The sweet and musky scent started to mess with his mind, and before he knew it he was flipping Naruto onto his hands and knees and thrusting into him like a madman. Naruto cried out under him in bliss as he came again. Kakashi reached around and gripped Naruto's chin before turning his head and kissing him awkwardly from behind while his other hand slid down his lover's firm stomach to his erection and started to pump it to get him off again. He felt his own climax coming by the tightening in his stomach, and with Naruto's hole fluttering around his he couldn't take it anymore and came. Too bad the scent Naruto was giving off kept him hard and needing more. That was the start of the long night to come. Naruto yawned while stretching out his pleasantly aching body. He fought down a silly giggle and snuggled into the warmth wrapped around him. Kakashi groaned as he opened his tired eyes and looked down at his lover. "Naruto, you have the stamina of the devil," he muttered tiredly before kissing the top of his head. Naruto purred happily, nuzzling his neck, then he licked it and looked at the place his shoulder joins to his neck with a blush. Naruto nipped the spot gently as he looked up at Kakashi, who was godly handsome without his mask and headband. Naruto ran his fingers through his lover's hair and smiled softly when Kakashi bent down and stole a kiss. "Kakashi," said Human, looked down into the kitsune's loving blue eyes and smiled. "Yes?" Naruto shimmied up so he was face to face with the man, then he pecked him gently on the lips. "Would you be my mate?" Kakashi blinked before he smiled lovingly at Naruto and captured his lips in a hungry kiss that caused the air to thicken with the sweet scent of Naruto's arousal. "Yes, Naruto, I will protect you as long as I live." Naruto beamed in happiness as he rolled Kakashi onto his back and straddled his hips. "Thank you so much, Kakashi. My love," Naruto whispered with tears in his eyes before he bent down and clamped his enlarged fangs into his mate's shoulder. Kakashi gasped while his body spasmed before he came violently. Naruto moaned loudly around the flesh in his mouth as he also came hard and collapsed onto Kakashi's heaving chest. "Holy fuck," Kakashi mumbled as he wrapped his arms around his new mate and kissed the top of his head. Naruto groaned, rubbing up against Kakashi's stomach as he begged for more. "Kaka, the next wave of heat is coming." Kakashi's hand dipped down in between Naruto's cheeks and smirked when he felt around the clenching hole to find the slick oozing out of his mate's hole. "Well then, I'm just going to have to satisfy you then, my little mate." Naruto moaned at his mate's words before rubbing his erection against his mate's stomach again. "Do you need food first?" Kakashi asked in concern for his mate's health. Naruto chuckled before flipping them over himself so he was under Kakashi ready to be taken. "Kakashi, you filled me up so full of cum last night that I might explode. I'm only hungry for you at the moment." Kakashi licked his lips with a smirk before he dipped down and stole a kiss, his slip easily into the well-lubed hole. Naruto moaned at the feel of Kakashi inside him before he tightened around his mate and pushed back against him with a needy whine. A thought struck him just as Kakashi thrust in to the hilt, causing Naruto to accidentally blurt it out. "Don't be shocked if I randomly grow a tail." Kakashi froze, then looked down at his lover with amusement and shock. Naruto refused to look up at his mate and turned his head the other way with his ears tinting pink. "I mean, during the second wave of heat it's normal if the submissive shifts into his in-between state." Naruto whined and hid his face behind his hands. Kakashi chuckled while prying his hands away from his face and kissing his lips gently. "Don't worry, I think that's cute." Naruto peered up at him shyly before he bit his lips when his heat slammed into him without any warning, making his insides ache and his twitch. "Kakashi," he moaned while his eyelids lowered to half-mast. Kakashi's eyes also lowered to half-mast when his mate's sweet smell slammed into him like a brick to the face. Kakashi gave a lusty smirk before he started rocking into his lover's prostate. "Ah, Kakashi, faster," he moaned out, so Kakashi happily complied. Before they could get into the swing of things, the door burst open and in bounced Yellow and Green. At first they froze to assess the situation before they pranced happily over to the bed and laid their heads on the edge. Kakashi was frozen and looking at the foxes in shock as they stared at Naruto expectantly. Naruto bit his lip to suppress a giggle of understanding while Kakashi was frozen with a dumbfounded expression on his face. Anko ran in next, looking out of breath and panicked. She took one look at her mother's position before her face split with a shit-eating grin. Naruto blushed cutely before grinning up at Kakashi, who refused to turn to look at Anko, who was snickering at his embarrassment. "Sorry Kaka, they must have smelt my heat and come looking for me." Kakashi shifted slightly, causing Naruto to stiffen and moan lowly. He panted while gazing up at his mate lustfully. Don't move." Naruto reached up and wrapped his arms around Kakashi's neck before he rolled them over so he was straddling his waist. Naruto shuddered when he felt Kakashi's poke at his prostate. With shaky arms Naruto pushed himself up so he was sitting instead of lying on Kakashi's chest. Green, Yellow. At the sound of their code names the two foxes' ears perked up and their heads lifted from the edge of the bed. "Come here." They jumped onto the bed excitedly, causing Kakashi to panic slightly. Naruto smiled reassuringly down at him while he patted his chest. His body shook with the effort to control his heat, but once the fox kits were standing on the bed next to Naruto, he reached out his hand and pulled Yellow's head closer quickly before biting down hard into his neck. Yellow whined but stayed still while his body shifted. His bloody red fur paled into a more sandy blonde color with white tips on his tail, underbelly and feet. After his DNA finished changing, Naruto let him go and he scampered away from the unknown alpha connected to his mother. The process was repeated with Green, except his fur turned fully white and his underbelly turned black, as well as his tail and paws. Once Green had made his escape, Naruto turned his blood-covered face to Anko and smiled gently at her. Anko, she didn't even mind Kakashi, who was wide-eyed and freaking out as she crawled onto the bed and made her way over to her mother. "Thank you mama," she said with a smile before she was pulled over to Naruto and her neck was bitten into just where it joined her shoulder. Tears sprung to her eyes, but she held them down as her body was forced to change both inside and out. Her hair stayed the same color, only a few shades of gold was spun into it, and her ears shifted to the top of her head where they changed shape into long slender fox ears the color of purple with gold tips. Her spine extended out and continued to grow until a tail had formed around the bone. The fur was dark purple with golden tips, her canines lengthened and her pupils narrowed into slits. Lastly, her nails hardened and grew into pointed claws. Once the transformation was complete, she gave her mother a kiss on the cheek despite the blood and weakly crawled off of the bed and dragged herself out of the room, shutting the door behind her, but not before reassuring Naruto she would take care of her siblings. Naruto licked his blood-stained lips before looking back down at Kakashi, who was gazing up at him with confused but aroused eyes. During the heat, an Omega can change anyone's body to become a part of their family. "Those two kits are my brothers, but his mate died and he is sealed inside me, so he asked for me to make them a part of my family. Anko found us not too long ago and she is now my daughter," he explained before swooping down and sharing the coppery taste of blood with Kakashi. "It's similar to how I made your body change so you can handle me as a mate." Kakashi nodded before thrusting up into Naruto, causing the heat to come back with a vengeance. Naruto cried out and bit into Kakashi's mating mark, causing them both to come violently, while Naruto forced another portion of his chakra into Kakashi's body, which caused it to change even more. Kakashi flipped them over once again and continuously slammed into his mate with renewed energy. A week passed of fucking, shower, power naps, quick meals, mating marks and surprising new changes for Kakashi. He now has 4 silver fox tail with silver ears on top of his head. His build is lean but larger than Naruto's, and he can now fuck for 2 whole nights and days without passing out. Plus they now knows a lot more about each other. Kakashi's chakra store has also increased thanks to Naruto continuously pumping him full of his demonic chakra. Today is the day the Chunin exams start, and it is also the day Naruto's heat ends. Naruto lounged lazily on his rumpled bed, his 9 golden tails swishing behind him and his long ears twitching every so often. With a yawn and a flick of his wrist, a small red-furred fox appeared and bowed respectfully to the naked demon fox. "Congratulations Naruto-sama for getting your first mate," Naruto grinned and winked at the small messenger fox. "Thanks. Can you pop by Tsunade's and tell her my heat's passed?" The fox bowed and popped out of the room just as Kakashi walked into the room with a towel around his waist and a smaller one drying his silver hair, careful of his new sensitive ears that immediately pointed towards Naruto to see if anything was wrong with him. Naruto smiled lovingly at his mate, then patted the spot right in front of him on the bed. Kakashi walked over to his mate and handed him the towel while gently kissing the hand that took the towel. "Best week of my life," he muttered happily while Naruto gently dried his tails that twitched to wrap around his mate and hold him close. "Yes, it was fun, but the Chunin exams start today and I need to be there. Do you know what Sasuke and Sakura were doing this whole time?" Kakashi snorted in amusement and waved carelessly over his shoulder. Sasuke was training and Sakura was trying to impress him by looking like a walking cupcake. Naruto giggled as he wrapped his arms around Kakashi's waist and resting his head on his thigh. "Do you think you got me pregnant?" Kakashi smirked and rubbed Naruto's belly that was bloated with all the cum Kakashi filled him up with during the night. "I doubt you won't have any kids. I filled you up with so much cum that it would be insulting if you didn't get pregnant." Naruto giggled and nuzzled Kakashi's hip bone while lazily dragging his fingers through the soft fur on one of his silver tails. The loving moment was ruined by Anko sprinting into the room with green and yellow following after her, fully fitted in nin fox gear. "Mama, today's the Chunin exams. You have to hurry up and get ready or you will miss the first exam," she squealed out excitedly before jumping onto Kakashi and Naruto with the kits not far behind. Naruto groaned and flicked Anko in the head softly with one of his tails before he sat up on his elbows and smiled gently at her. "I know, you also have your part of the exams ready I hope," she nodded excitedly while bouncing on the bed before she ran out of the room with the kits yipping after her. Kakashi groaned, planting his face into Naruto's stomach. "You forget she's around my age when she acts like that," Naruto chuckled and smoothed down Kakashi's hair. "She's just happy. It's a good sight to see." Kakashi blew out a raspberry on Naruto's belly, causing him to giggle and playfully flick him with a tail. "Come now Kakashi, we both need to get dressed so we don't miss the exams." Kakashi turned his head slightly to look into Naruto's eyes and smirked. "We could just arrive an hour late." Naruto rolled his eyes and then pushed him off of his bloated stomach. "Whatever. I need a long shower, inside and out." Kakashi puffed out his chest proudly at that statement, which made Naruto smirk. He slipped out of bed with a grunt before stretching out his entire body, causing cum to dribble from his ass. Naruto ignored Kakashi's shit-eating grin and patted his way over to the bathroom. After taking the longest shower he ever had and getting changed into his new outfit that he's only worn once, since this entire week consisted of him being naked or in one of Kakashi's shirt that fitted him like a dress, he smoothed down his longer golden hair and tied on his forehead protector. "Kakashi, hurry up, we need to get going." Naruto yelled into his apartment that he noted to himself needed to be cleaned. Kakashi appeared a moment later looking a little worried. "How do I get rid of the tail and ears?" he asked nervously. Naruto smirked before pulling Kakashi down for a deep kiss. When he pulled back he smiled up at Kakashi lovingly. "Just a simple genjutsu will do." Kakashi nodded before quickly flashing through a few hand signs. He made sure they were gone by looking down to see his tail missing, and with a quick check of his tail he noted he couldn't find the ears either. He shrugged lazily before following after his love, who was waiting patiently at the door with an amused expression on his face. Kakashi passed him with a quick kiss to his lips and waited until Naruto locked the door before he grabbed his hand and pulled him to his chest. Naruto smirked and jumped, wrapping his slender legs around Kakashi's waist, causing said silver-haired man to kiss him deeply before jumping onto the roofs towards the exam building, still mid-kiss. The couple made it to the academy as soon as Sasuke and Sakura showed up. Naruto quickly let his ears and tail vanish and de-aged himself before anyone saw anything, then hopped down from Kakashi's arms. "See you inside, babe," Kakashi said quickly, then vanished. Naruto turned to his two teammates and flashed a warm smile that caused Sasuke to frown. "Hey guys, how was your week?" Sasuke grunted while Sakura went into a detailed explanation why Ino was such a bitch. The two males of the team blocked her out while they made their way inside. After climbing 2 sets of stairs, they came upon the sight of a crowded door with the designated room number on it. Naruto frowned at the obvious genjutsu while it took Sasuke a moment to get it, but Sakura remained unknowing. Naruto rolled his eyes and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, causing her to look over at him strangely. "Sakura, this is the 2nd floor, they have cast a genjutsu over the door." She looked like she was about to argue before she did a double take and was shocked to find he was correct. Naruto smiled reassuringly at her, and she was confused to find she actually felt a little better about getting that wrong after he smiled. "Let us continue on." Sasuke and Sakura nodded before following the older Kitsune up the stairs. Once they made it to the right room, Kakashi appeared and immediately rushed over to Naruto's side. "You took a long time getting up here. Did you run into some trouble?" he asked in a panic. Naruto chuckled at him and placed a hand on his arm. "I suppose the stairs are a formidable opponent. Now go on with your little speech." Kakashi sighed in relief before nodding and pulling away slightly. "Okay, well, this was actually a test. If Sakura didn't come, both of you boys wouldn't have been able to enter, so I'm glad to see you here, Sakura." She nodded with a frown on her face while Sasuke remained unresponsive. Kakashi's eyes smiled before pecking Naruto on his lips quickly and vanishing from the room. Sakura gasped and pointed at Naruto. "You and Kakashi-sensei have gotten together," she screeched. Naruto and Sasuke flinched before Naruto nodded slowly. "Yes, Kakashi and I are now mates." "Brilliant observation skills, Sakura." Sasuke grunted before walking into the room with Naruto and Sakura following after him. As soon as Team 7 entered the room, all the killing intent was focused on them, and Naruto just so happened to react on instinct. The killing intent in the room was floored by the amount Naruto himself gave off, and everyone fell to the floor except for a young red-haired Jinchuriki in the back corner struggling to stay standing. Naruto gasped and immediately let up his killing intent so he didn't give anyone a stroke. "I am so sorry everyone, it's an old habit I forgot about," Naruto said in an apologetic tone. Everyone scrambled to their feet and moved away from the new team. Sasuke turned his raised eyebrow to Naruto, who gave him a sheepish grin. "It caught me by surprise." The black-haired Uchiha nodded, then moving off to the side with Sakura trailing after him. Before Naruto could follow them, the same red-haired boy that was in the corner appeared right in front of him and whined when Naruto's eyes landed on him. "Oh, you poor boy," whispered Naruto as he gently laid his hand on the short boy's head. "Mother tells me that you can help her. She's in pain." Naruto smiled gently at the red-haired boy and nodded. "What the sand demon says is true. I am able to help him, but first, tell me your name." The boy dragged his jade-green eyes filled with pain and neglect to gaze into Naruto's warm and understanding eyes. He flashed a tiny smile before bowing his head slightly in greeting. "I am Gaara of the Sand. Who are you?" "Mother keeps saying you're Kurama's brother." Naruto titled his head cutely before flashing his own smile at the young Jinchuriki. "My name is Naruto. It is a pleasure to meet you, Gaara." Naruto looked over at his team to find them talking loudly with the other rookies. Naruto turned back to Gaara and smiled. "Would you like to meet my team, Gaara?" Gaara tilted his head curiously before nodding and following after Naruto when he started walking back to his team. Naruto and Gaara joined the circle silently. No one seemed to notice their arrival besides Sasuke, who nodded towards Naruto, which made the golden-haired Kitsune smile back. "See the black-haired boy over there? His name is Sasuke Uchiha, and the pink-haired girl is Sakura." Gaara nodded, so Naruto focused in on listening to the conversation. "Hey, so where is Naruto? I haven't seen him yet," Kiba asked while Akumaru barked in agreement. Naruto smiled fondly and walked up behind the brown-haired boy before plucking Akumaru from his hoodie. The puppy immediately went to bite the grabby hands before he got a whiff of the scent and immediately stopped. The puppy looked up and barked happily with his tail wagging so fast it was hard to see. Naruto grinned down at the puppy and planted a kiss on his furry head. "I remember when my kits were your size. They were the cutest little foxes alive." Akumaru barked happily and licked Naruto's chin. Kiba turned around at the sound of Naruto's voice and gasped. "Naruto!" he shouted a little too loudly. Everyone in the room turned to them with killer intent blazing to life, but it immediately died down once they saw it was the golden-haired rookie that floored them all as soon as he walked into the room. A silver-haired boy with glasses walked over to them with a warm smile. "May I suggest you talk quietly? The room is full of tension," he said sweetly. Naruto took a whiff of his scent and growled lowly, causing Akumaru to look up at him and whine in reassurance. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man that smelt of snake before stepping closer to Gaara, who looked over at Naruto and followed his gaze to the boy he was glaring at with newfound hate. "That snake is not trustworthy," Naruto thought with a scowl. "And what do you want?" Naruto forced out through gritted teeth. Everyone looked over at Naruto with confusion while Akumaru growled at the man. The man shrugged it off with a chuckle and a wave of his hand. "Nothing much. I've been in these exams before and I've collected data on many people. I just decided to help you out since you rookies are most likely going to be large targets for everyone here." Naruto snorted. "Including you?" He pushed up his glasses before sending Naruto a smile, but he could tell it was covering up his annoyance. "Everyone is an enemy in this place, so it is good to have allies. Plus I'm from the same village as you guys." Naruto returned the growling puppy back to his owner and scowled at the silver-haired boy. "If you're from the same village as us, why do you smell like a snake to me?" He stiffened before going to laugh it off. "You can't laugh it off forever, Snake. I'll be watching you." The silver-haired genin narrowed his eyes in annoyance, then turned to leave. "You're as brutish as those sound nin." Apparently those brutish sound nin heard him, because not even a second later the silver-haired nin was forced to dodge a blow from the sound nin. Naruto heard the pressure waves and smirked just as the silver-haired nin bent over and puked all over the ground. Naruto stepped away with a chuckle that only Gaara and Kiba heard. Before anything more could happen, the doors burst open and in walked the first exam instructor, Ibiki. "Alright you maggots. Any more fighting and you will be disqualified. Now take your seats," he boomed while walking to the front of the room. Naruto slid into a seat beside Hinata and gave her a kind smile before the rules were explained. "Okay idiots. You will be given a test. If you're caught cheating, 2 points will be taken from our overall score. If all of your points are taken away, you and your team will be kicked out. The 10th question will be spoken by me at the end of the exam. You may begin." After the brief explanation, everyone turned over their papers and begun to read. Naruto skimmed over the first 3 questions before smirking and catching Ibiki's eyes that peered at him curiously. The questions were obviously too hard for a simple genin to get, so the aim of the test was to cheat without getting caught. Unfortunately for them, Naruto is ancient and knew every single one of these questions by heart. After flying through the questions with detailed answers, he placed down his pencil and fell asleep. With only power naps for a week as your needed sleep, it can mess up your sleeping habits and make you feel sleepy at odd times of the day. Naruto was just about to fall into the blissful arms of unconsciousness but was interrupted by Ibiki walking up to his desk and tapping the table unconsciously. Naruto peeled his eyes open and glared up at the bulky man who peered back down at him. He grabbed his pencil and started to tap out code on the desk. "What the hell do you want?" The man looked generally surprised before he tapped out an answer. "Are you finished?" Instead of tapping back, Naruto nodded his head yes and then reached forward and poked Ibiki's stomach with his pencil. The exam instructor looked a little surprised before he rolled his eyes and grinned down at the boy before moving on. Naruto yawned and finally went to sleep on his desk. Kakashi stared at the screen intently while the other team senseis made bets on who would be eliminated and what not. Guy turned to Kakashi and flashed his good guy grin at him. "Kakashi, why don't you come and join our most youthful betting game?" Kakashi glanced at him lazily then replied, "Sorry, did you say something?" Which of cause sent Guy into his rant about how cool and youthful Kakashi is. One of the female senseis walked over and took a seat next to the silver-haired Jonin. "You have been watching that yellow-haired boy for some time now, Kakashi. Some might mistake that gaze for that of a lover's," she joked. Kakashi glanced at her with the most serious face he could muster and said, "Then you'd be correct." A hushed silence fell over the room while Kakashi went back to staring at the screen. Suddenly the outline of a smirk appeared on his mask, causing everyone to look at the screen to see the blonde-haired boy had fallen asleep. Kakashi chuckled smugly as he leaned back in his seat and crossing his arms over his chest. "Must have tired him out last night." Everyone choked on air when the muttered sentence passed through their ears. Naruto woke with a start to hear the sound of shattering glass and the joyful cry of "Mama," before he was tackled out of his seat by his 3 kids. Naruto groaned from the floor while his face was being licked all over by Yellow and Green. Anko squeezed him happily and continued to rant about how much she missed him. Naruto managed to get his kits to stop licking his face and he managed to sit up, but that only caused Anko to lift him into her arms and squeeze him some more. Naruto, whose mind was clouded in sleep, was forced to call for help. Yellow, Green, save Mama. The kits leapt into action and wrestled Anko away from him before he could faint from lack of oxygen. Naruto wobbled back to his seat, then collapsed back into it and rubbing his face clean with his sleeve. Holy hell, I just saw my life flash before my eyes, he muttered, glancing down at Anko, Yellow and Green. Anko was crying out for help while Green and Yellow tore at her coat and nipped at her skin. Naruto snorted before looking over at Ibiki like nothing ever happened. Said man was stunned into silence much like the rest of the room, but he still cleared his throat and went to go help Anko. You're early, Anko. The woman just grinned while leaping onto the ceiling rafters to escape her siblings' nips. But I wanted to see my mama. Everyone's eyes shifted over to Naruto, who looked out the window as if bored with this whole situation. Anko pouted at his nonchalant attitude, crossing her arms over her chest and huffed. Fine, maybe I will tell everyone about what I walked into this morning when I broke into your house. Naruto's eyes snapped over to her and a warning glare was sent her way, but she ignored it and continued on with her story. Okay, everyone listen up. As I picked the locks to my mama's house with Yellow and Green keeping an eye on things, I heard the most wiest little moan you could ever hear. Naruto blinked in confusion, then frowned up at her. Wait a minute, what time did you sneak into my house? She smirked down at Naruto. 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, so when I let myself in, she was cut off by being forced to dodge a kunai that lodged itself into the place her head just was. Get a life, and stop breaking into my apartment. She pouted down at Naruto from her new spot in the rafters. But mama, you are my life. Naruto went to pull out another kunai from his hip pouch, but Ibiki decided to save Anko's life. Anyway, for the 10th question there is another rule. Everyone snapped back into attention, including Naruto. If you get this question wrong, you and your team will be disqualified and will never be able to take this exam again. If you choose to take the question and you get it right, you will be able to pass on to the next exam. You can choose to walk out of this exam right now and you will be able to take this exam the next time it comes around, but your entire team will also be disqualified. You have 5 minutes to decide whether or not you will take the question. A random missed nin shouted out from the back of the room. That's not fair, there are people here who have taken the exams numerous times. Ibiki smirked. Well, you just so happened to get me as an exam instructor this time. How unlucky, and with those words hands shot up into the air and one team after another left the room. The amount of people were dwindling, so when Naruto saw the hesitation of Sakura's eyes, he decided to speak up. He slammed his hand down on the table and rose to his feet. Screw you, I don't care if I'm a genin for the rest of my life. If I pass this test, I pass it and good for me, but if I fail this test, I can train harder and become stronger even if I can't become Chunin or Jonin. He ended his rant with a determined glare directed at Ibiki, and just like that everyone's doubts were erased and no one raised their hands anymore. Ibiki sighed, but he smirked and declared something to the leftover teams. Congratulations, you all pass. Kiba stood up in shock and shouted out. What? Ibiki rolled his eyes before he untied the bandana from around his head to show all kind of different scars carved into his head. A shinobi's life is dangerous and you need to make sure that whatever you do you are putting your village's best interests first. Those people that left held doubt, and because of that doubt they could have failed a mission if this was real. The aim of this entire test was not to test your memory but your information gathering skills. Once everyone thought about it, they all cheered and congratulated each other until Anko dropped down from the rafters and swiped Naruto from his seat and tucked him under her arm. Naruto hung limply from her arms with a roll of his eyes. Alright losers, if you want to participate in the next exam, follow me. And with that she jumped out of another window, shattering glass everywhere. Everyone grumbled in annoyance, but most followed her out of the window, including Naruto's team and Gaara's team. Once everyone was standing in front of the gates to the Forest of Death, Anko began to explain the second stage to the exam. Alright, listen up because I'm only saying this once. This is where you will be completing the second stage of your exam. You will need to fill out a slip of paper so our village doesn't get the blame for your death if you do die in there. Each team will be given either a Earth Scroll or a Heaven Scroll. And this is where she pulled out 2 different scrolls and showed everyone. Once a team has collected both scrolls, they have to make their way to the tower in the middle of the forest. Under no circumstances do you open these scrolls during the exam or you will get a nasty surprise. Sign the sheets before a team member goes to collect your scroll. Make sure no one sees it so they don't target you. You have 5 days to get to the tower before you're disqualified and ranked as dead. And as if an afterthought struck her, she spun around to the genin and added, also watch out for the man-eating plants, giant predators and poisonous flowers. Have fun. And with that she left the freaked-out genin to sign their death papers and get their scrolls. Naruto quickly signed the paper before collecting his teams and smiling at them. I'll go get the scroll. They both nodded and watched as Naruto walked over to the cloth-covered booth where they got their scrolls and handed in their forms. The man who was sitting at the table looked up when his flap moved and blinked up at Naruto stupidly. He had obviously been sleeping on the job, no doubt. Naruto placed the papers down on the table and smiled. Here you go. The man quickly slipped up the forms and read them briefly before he handed over a heaven scroll. Naruto smiled in thanks, and with a flick of his wrist the scroll was gone. He gave a teasing wink at the man before he swept out of the booth gracefully. Naruto made it over to his team and smiled, earning a questioning look from Sasuke. When he glanced up, Sasuke nodded in understanding and turned away. So I have a plan. Once we get into the forest I'm gonna take you to my den, but under no circumstances do you tell anyone where it is. Got that? They both nodded slowly, but Sakura frowned and blurted out loudly. Wait, have you been in this forest before? Anko appeared as if being summoned, and before anyone could blink she had attached herself to Naruto and was rubbing her face against his cheek. Of course he has. This is where I met my mama. He was playing with his kits when I stumbled upon the heartwarming sight. He's my fluffy golden fox mama, she squealed happily before hugging Naruto harder. The kits came running over, tripping over each other to get to their mama first, and once they were close enough they jumped onto him, knocking over both Naruto and Anko. Naruto groaned while muttering to himself. I really need to be in my fox form to deal with you 3 kits? Anko gasped like she had the best thought in the world and pulled Naruto up so he was sitting with her in his lap. Hey mama, can you turn into a fox and shrink to the size of a kit? Naruto blinked before frowning. I can shift into any size I want. Being that small is dangerous though, so I don't do it, she squealed loudly and shoved Naruto's face in her breasts as she bounced up and down on his lap. That would be so cute. You need to promise me that someday you will do that for me and I can hold you like a little lapdog. Naruto groaned and rolled his eyes. Whatever. I need to be standing. Everyone has their scrolls now, so it's time to start. She blinked before her face shifted into panic mode and she grabbed the 2 kits but their scruff and dragged them away, shouting about how she's late. Sasuke extended a hand and Naruto took it gratefully. What was she talking about? You transforming into a fox? Sakura asked while Naruto sighed and closed his eyes to collect his thoughts. Alright, I've had enough of this guilt about not telling you, and to be honest I don't really care if you're afraid of me after this, but yes, I am a demon. A fox demon, and if you need proof I'll transform in the forest to show you. Sasuke grunted while Sakura gasped and started muttering under her breath. Alright you maggots, everything you would possibly need is in that forest. This is a survival test, so hurry up and get to your assigned gates before I kick you over there. Good luck, ha 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 ha. Everyone jumped away to go to their gates, with Anko's evil laughter getting quieter and quieter. Naruto and his team made it to their gates, so Naruto turned to his 2 teammates. I have the scroll, Sakura, it's a heaven scroll, so we need an earth scroll to pass. Once we get inside the forest I'm going to transform and take you to my den because I have a bad feeling about what's going to happen in the forest. I'll get the earth scroll since I know this forest like the back of my paw. Now when I transform, don't freak out. His team nodded slowly, so Naruto focused back onto the gates only for Anko's voice to boom over the sound system. You idiots better be in position. You only have 5 days in this forest, so you better hurry up, now start. And with her spoken words the gates swung open at the same time and shot the genin. Once Naruto was at a safe distance from the gate that no one would see him transforming, he stopped and turned to his team, who paused and waited with bated breath to see his transformation. Okay, this is a bad idea. I might freak you guys out and I don't want to do that, Naruto blurted out, causing Sasuke to roll his eyes. Just do it, Dobi. Naruto frowned, then an idea popped into his head and he smiled. Okay. His bones snapped and his body shrank with golden fur growing all over his body. 9 swishing tails grew from his tailbone and he dropped to his small dainty paws. His ears moved on top of his head and formed long fluffy fox ears with his snout extending out and narrowing. His eyes started to glow while his body continued to shrink until he was the same size as a Kumaru, only a little smaller. His golden fur puffed out to make him look like a walking fur ball with 9 tails. Sakura's cheeks flushed red before she squealed and picked Naruto up to squish him against her face and rub her cheek against his soft fur. Even Sasuke's cheeks tinted slightly red at the cuteness of his teammate. "Come on guys, we need to get going to my den." Even his demonic voice was small and cute. Sakura awed at him before Sasuke cleared his throat and gently plucked Naruto from her grasp. "We cannot get distracted, Sakura. We need to know where we are going, so I'll be holding Naruto." She pouted but nodded and jumped back into the trees. "Alright, you need to travel deeper into the forest. Once you find a stream that cuts through the forest, you turn around and head north. I'll lead you the rest of the way from there." Sasuke nodded as he leapt towards the deepest part of the forest. Half a day later and Sakura was growing tired. "Sakura, are you alright?" said pink-haired girl looked up with flushed cheeks and sweat dripping down her face. "We are traveling pretty fast and we haven't taken a break since we started." "I'm tired." Naruto sighed and sniffed the air. He was happy to find the smell of clean water nearby. "Well, don't worry, we will be able to have a break at the stream. It's close by, so just hang in there for a little bit longer." She sighed but nodded and pushed her shaking legs into leaping further ahead. True to his words, the stream made itself known with the gentle sound of running water. Sakura jumped down to the ground and promptly collapsed while Sasuke sat down on a large stone with Naruto in his lap. He was breathing slightly heavily but nothing too bad. Naruto flicked his fluffy tail and out popped out 3 lunchboxes in a cloud of white smoke. Sakura filled up her water bottle from the stream and drank most of it in one gulp while Sasuke picked his box, a black one, and started eating the food inside. After her drink, Sakura came over and plonked down to stuff her face full of food. "Oh man, you're so lucky, Naruto, you didn't even have to run at all this whole day." Sakura whined, making Naruto frown. "Yes, and I apologize for that, but there is a reason for my laziness. You see, I went into heat last week and it only ended last night, so I'm rather tired and sore already. I also might be carrying kits now." Sasuke spat out his food in the most un-Uchiha way possible while Sakura gasped and rushed over to Naruto, flipping the furry animal onto his back and started probing at his belly. Naruto whined and tried to wriggle away, but Sakura was determined to find any sort of bump inside Naruto's belly. "Sakura, please stop, the seed might not have even taken." Naruto wisely decided to leave out the fact that it was very unlikely that Kakashi's seed did not take, since he was incredibly potent to begin with, and with the Kitsune gene now flowing through his body he was even more so. Sakura hushed the squirming fox and continued to probe. "Sakura, please stop. I'm sore and I'm tired." The girl huffed in annoyance and glared into Naruto's glowing eyes. "Well, so am I, so shut up. I want to see if you're pregnant. It's Kakashi's babies, right?" Naruto could feel his skin heating up and was glad Sakura could not see his blush because of his thick fur. "Of course, he is my mate now." Sakura frowned when she didn't find anything unusual, which made Naruto smirk. "I highly doubt the babies will be growing this soon after my heat. I mean, Kitsune withhold the kit's growth until after the heat just in case something goes wrong during it and they are injured. We hold our unborn kit's health at the highest degree, but I promise you, if I do start showing signs of pregnancy, you will be the second person to know." Sakura beamed before letting Naruto squirm onto his tiny paws and gobble up his food before stretching and starting to trot over to the stream. "Now we must keep on going. My den is not too far away." Sakura sighed but dragged herself to her feet and washed out the lunchboxes in the stream quickly before Naruto made them go away with a flick of his tail and some demonic chakra. Sasuke walked over to Naruto and picked him up gently before settling him in his arms. Naruto pointed a small paw towards the north. "I'll tell you when to stop." Sasuke nodded and leapt into the trees with Sakura following closely behind. 2 hours later and Naruto finally told them to stop. He hopped down from Sasuke's arms and trotted over to a cliff before dispelling the genjutsu he cast over it to make it look like a normal cliffside. Once the illusion shimmered away, a wide, deep hole was unveiled. Without a second though, Naruto trotted into the darkness and slipped down the steep slope into his den. "Be careful of the slope," he yelled just in time to save Sakura and Sasuke from falling into the den. They slowly made their way down and looked around the large pile of sticks and leaves designed to look like a nest. "Luckily for you guys, I thought ahead and brought some comfy things so you don't complain while sleeping in a bed of sticks and leaves." With another flick of his tail, a large scroll appeared at his paws. He unrolled it with his snout before pumping chakra into the description, saying, "Bedding." With a giant puff of smoke, the entire den was covered in soft pillows and blankets of all sorts. Naruto set to work moving all of the pillows and blankets into place, and after an hour of the two teammates watching Naruto rearrange his nest, they finally saw he was done and looked at his work. The pillows were set to cover the entire den floor while all the blankets were thrown over the top of the pillows. A pile of pillows that weren't covered in blankets were propped up at the very end of the nest beside a pile of blankets and quilts. Naruto sighed as he moved over to a large fluffy throw pillow and collapsed right in the middle of it, looking like a golden fluffy pom-pom. Sakura looked over at Sasuke to see him lounging on the pile of pillows next to Naruto, so with a shrug of her shoulders she joined the boys and collapsed on the pile of blankets. "That was tiring. I'm gonna go out tomorrow morning and hunt for some food and some scrolls. Those two have nothing to do with each other, so don't worry, I'm not going to fetch you some dude's leg while I'm gone." Sakura giggled while Sasuke grunted, and slowly all three fell asleep. Naruto woke to the homely feel of his den, accompanied by the comfy support of a pillow tucked under his tiny body. His jaw opened wide in a large yawn while his body stretched out to pop all the kinks from his joints. After a quick check around his den, he made sure Sakura and Sasuke were safe and sleeping well before he started to grow leaner and taller until he was the same size as his kits, if only a little bit taller. His fur smoothed out so it wasn't as puffy or noticeable, and with a quick shake he hopped over all the pillows and blankets to get to the slope of his den and climbed out of the cave to greet the day. Once outside, he sniffed the air and frowned when the lingering scent of blood and sand drifted into his wet nose. After detecting where the scent was coming from, he took off at speeds not even a seasoned shinobi could track. He skidded to a stop 5 minutes later to the scene of blood-covered trees and 3 bodies thrown around the area like rag dolls. Naruto's nose twitched at the strong scent of blood before he shook it off and darted off again. It didn't take as long as the last run to come across the sight of a 3-man team sleeping, considering it was so early in the morning. Naruto's ears twitched forward when he saw the sight of Gaara sitting down against a tree watching over his 2 slumbering teammates. He looked tired and worn but could not go to sleep. Naruto frowned at the pitiful sight, then trotted out into the open. Gaara's eyes immediately snapped over to Naruto's lithe form, sand swirling around him ready for the attack. When he saw only a brightly colored fox the size of a dog, he glared slightly but let his sand drop to the ground around him in a perfect circle. Naruto sighed before trotting forward, stepping past the circle of sand fearlessly before he started to grow and slowly shift as he walked closer. Gaara's eyes widened in shock as Naruto emerged from the form of a fox and stood before him naked, with 9 flowing golden tails swishing behind him and 2 large golden ears sitting atop his hair. Naruto offered a kind smile as he crouched down in front of the frozen red head. "Gaara, I have come to help you and your tenant." He wisely chose not to use his demonic voice in case it scared away the uncertain Jinchuriki. Gaara gazed up at Naruto with an old hope shining in his otherwise dull eyes, but he was still reluctant to let him help him. "Gaara, I can sense your pain and loneliness. I wish to help you, and that is all I want. Please trust me, little kid," Naruto cooed softly while reaching out his hand slowly to touch Gaara's face gently. Gaara gazed into Naruto's eyes before him and nodded slowly, so Naruto calmly placed his hand on his hair and smoothed his fingers through it to calm him down. Naruto's paw. "Let me see your stomach, little kid," I ordered softly. He was slow to pull up his shirt, but once it was up I was appalled by the seal I could see. My eyes narrowed dangerously as I picked apart the seal easily. The seal was meant to keep both Gaara and Shikaku in pain for the rest of their lives, and it was also meant to prevent Shikaku from taking over, but only if Gaara is awake. Pitiful humans are so cruel. I clenched my teeth to prevent a snarl from bubbling up and scaring Gaara away. "I cannot lift you of your burden, little one, but I can ease your suffering," I said with determination before my fingers started to glow a bright golden color and I begun to write demonic symbols in the air. After 5 minutes of speed writing, I stopped and slammed my hand into all the symbols while gently placing a glowing hand on Gaara's stomach over the seal he already has. The old seal broke down and faded away, quickly being replayed by my new demonic seal that stung Gaara before putting him to sleep. I smiled when I watched Gaara's body relax and fall limp against the tree. I looked over to his two teammates and sighed before walking over and shaking Kankuro awake. I stepped back when he jumped to his feet, kunai drawn and ready to fight. "Calm down," I soothed, but he just pointed his kunai at me and blushed. "Why the fuck are you here and why the hell are you naked?" I grinned at him slyly before gesturing over to Gaara, causing his eyes to flicker over to the sleeping boy. His eyes widened once he realized Gaara was sleeping peacefully before they snapped over to me and narrowed. "What did you do?" he snarled, causing his war paint to crinkle. I flashed him a calming smile. "I fixed your brother's seal. He is now able to sleep and do everything a normal human can and a little more. Of course he can still control Shikaku's power, but he just has a little more of a stable mind now. He can no longer hear Shikaku's voice unless he wants to, and Shikaku is no longer being driven insane by that weak and evil seal. I simply woke you to ask if you could watch over him while he slept. You understand why, don't you?" He nodded slowly, then lowered his guard and stood taller. I smiled happily at him, then crouched down to the ground so I was on all fours. "Very well then, I must be off, so I'll see you soon," I said before I shifted into my fox form and sprinted off into the woods to collect some food and a scroll. 2 hours later I trotted back into the den, dragging behind me a massive rabbit for Sasuke and Sakura to eat. I've already eaten the first rabbit I caught. I cleaned up a small spot in the entrance of the den and made a fire with a few sticks and a small bit of foxfire before I impaled the rabbit on the stick after skinning it and cleaning it and put it over the fire. I quickly washed up at the stream before running back to the den and getting dressed in my turtleneck and ambu-styled pants. I strapped on my sword just as Sasuke woke up and looked over to me with what would be considered his morning glare. I smiled softly at him as I ran my fingers through my hair. "Your meal would be ready in a moment. I've got the earth scroll, so after you both have eaten we will be going to the tower so we can rest for the next 4 days." I explained quietly while I settled down on a bunch of pillows and drifted into a meditation-like state. After Sakura awoke and the rabbit was cooked, they gobbled it down like starving animals and we set off into the large jungle known as Training Ground Number 44. We traveled without any other problems, besides a large snake trying to eat me, but before I could be swallowed up I grabbed Sasuke and Sakura and got the hell out of there. I was so quick we made it to the tower an hour later, and once we figured out the meaning behind the words we opened the scrolls, and once they started smoking we chucked them to the ground. Kakashi appeared in a puff of smoke. My suppressed instincts bubbled up and I launched myself at Kakashi, who barely caught me before I ripped down his mask and attacked his lips. The feel of his warm lips against mine calmed me down, and after a moment of feverish kissing I calmly wrapped my arms around his neck and melted into his chest. He pulled away with a fond chuckle and muzzled my neck where my mating mark was placed, and then his eyes flickered up to my horrified teammates who looked like they just caught their parents having. Well, I came to say, congratulations on passing. Your room is up the stairs, number 106, and you have 4 days left of relaxing or training until the test continues on. I'll see you soon. And with that he wrapped his arms around my waist and puffed us out of there. We appeared in the office at the very top of the tower where Tsunade sat waiting for us while doing paperwork. I pouted at the location we appeared, hoping it would be a bed, but pushed that aside in favor of greeting my Hokage with a wide smile, still clinging to Kakashi, who was busy sniffing my hair and getting to know my body once again. "Naruto, that comment about the snake during the first exam worries me. As you know, I have an old teammate that uses snakes as his summons, and I was wondering if those words had anything behind them," she said with a small frown. I sighed and nodded sadly. "Unfortunately, yes. I did smell that bastard Orochimaru in the exam room under the disguise of a female ninja, and he did try to get his pet snake to eat me, but I got us out of there before anything could happen. I fear he was after Sasuke." Tsunade rubbed her face and nodded for me to continue. "As you should know, thanks to the Sennin Jiraiya, Orochimaru joined a group called the Akatsuki so he could steal Itachi's eyes, and once he failed to do so I think he has shifted his attention over to Sasuke." The blonde Hokage growled softly under her breath and nodded sadly. "Alright, thanks Naruto, I can always count on you." Our neighboring fox demon, I grinned at her slyly before turning my attention to Kakashi, who rested his head on my shoulder. Kakashi, let's go somewhere more private. He smiled widely under his mask before scooping me up bridal style and vanished only to appear a moment later in his room. I smiled at him when he dropped me on the bed and flopped down next to me to cuddle. I purred and nuzzled his ears that popped out the moment we arrived in his room. I too let my transformation drop so my tails and ears could be free. Kakashi, if your seed took, it would be around now that the babies would be growing, I whispered into his ear. He purred happily back before shifting down the bed to rest his head against my stomach. He nuzzled it for a moment before he rolled so I could only see the back of his head. He then began to speak. Hurry up, little guys, if you're in there you better be well behaved for your mama or I'll have to take all his beatings, he whispered quietly to my stomach. A wide smile tugged at my lips as I reached down and stroked his hair, smiling even wider when he started to purr against my stomach. I haven't told him yet, but I could feel their little speck of chakra forming since this morning, and soon their body would begin to grow and I would be a mother to my very own kid, one that I gave birth to. Currently there is only one, but that's because Kakashi was a human and his old genes must have took instead of his enhanced ones, meaning I became pregnant the moment he started mating with me, and since he is human he could only give me a small litter of 1 or 2 kids. I felt my eyes drift closed and before I knew it I was asleep. I awoke to the loud, irritating noise of someone knocking at the door. Kakashi groaned and rolled onto his back, tugging me on top of him so he could hide his face in the crook of my neck. I smiled tiredly down at him, my eyes still partially closed as I scanned the room before setting my eyes on a sleep-rumpled Kakashi. I purred while rubbing against his hair, all but forgetting about the person at our door. A minute later and I thought we were fine when the knocking started up again, only this time it was louder and harsher. I groaned in annoyance, tugging at Kakashi's fox ears to wake him so he could answer his door. Kakashi, go answer the door, I mumbled as I rolled over and snuggled into the blankets that smelled of his scent. He grunted before getting up, casting a genjutsu over himself, and walked to the door, swinging it open angrily to find Mike Guy standing at his door with his green spandex and his creepy smile. I glared at him from my cocoon of blankets for disturbing my sleep. Kakashi, what a youthful morning it is. Let us go feast with our students in the cafeteria to celebrate their passing of the second exam. He yelled happily, pumping his fists and flashing another smile. I growled at him from the bed, hating his very existence as I watched an annoyed expression flash across Kakashi's masked face. Guy, it's 5:30 in the morning, no one will be up at this time. Kakashi hissed, but before I could watch any more of this amusing and annoying show a wave of nausea hit me and I was forced to scramble out of bed and into the bathroom connected to the room. I emptied my stomach into the toilet, hating the taste of stomach acid and the feel of sickness. I continued to puke for a few minutes, comforted by the feeling of Kakashi stroking my back and holding my hair out of my face as I threw up everything I ate the day prior. Tears streamed down my flushed cheeks as I puked, wishing for it to be over soon as I knew it would be. Soon enough the nausea passed and I was left feeling gross and hungry, so after a quick shower with Kakashi who kept on nuzzling my hair and rubbing my stomach, we went to the cafeteria. We found Sasuke sitting on one of the tables eating a meal of curry and green tea. I have no idea why he is eating that for breakfast, but just roll with me here. So after ordering a buttload of food we sat down at his table and started to eat in silence. Sasuke cast me curious looks every once in a while, but I ignored him and continued to scarf down food like there was no tomorrow, and once I was done I collapsed against Kakashi and refused to move, growling at anyone who got close enough to touch me. Naruto, are you alright? Kakashi asked with a worried tone. I looked up at him with a small smile before kissing his masked cheek softly. Don't worry Kakashi, I'm just pregnant. My morning sickness should stop after a week and my mood shouldn't switch as bad as some demons, but still. I might be really annoying for the rest of the pregnancy, so I'm sorry, but please bear with me. Carrying a kid in human form is not ideal considering I am male, but I will be fine. I whispered softly into his ear before slumping against him again. He smiled happily and stroked my hair, purring softly in my ear so I would be lulled into sleep. I'm so happy I could die, he muttered against my hair. I chuckled softly, my eyes sliding closed so I could sleep. Don't say that Kakashi, our kid needs a father, I muttered before falling into unconsciousness. I woke again in a warm place in the lap of my mate who silently read his pervy book on the couch he was sitting on. I scanned my surroundings quickly before realizing it is the lounge the senseis used to hang out or watch the progress of their teams still in the forest. I groaned as I shifted, already feeling groggy as my mind refused to awaken fully. "Hello sleepy head, have a nice nap?" Kakashi asked with an amused chuckle. I sighed, rubbing my head against his chest and moaned in discomfort. "I feel like shit. I think I should go into a week-long hibernation until my morning sickness is over with," I mumbled before sitting up and leaning against his chest so I could read his book as well. I read a few sentences before getting bored with the scene. My mind began to wander and I started to remember all the times Kakashi had with me during my heat. I was embarrassed to find I lost count of the amount of times he thrust into me and blew his load inside my greedy hole. I bit my lip when I discovered I had an erection, so my focus immediately went to Kakashi, who was blissfully unaware and continued to read his smutty book. I frowned at him for not paying attention to me, so with a pout I went back to reading, just to see what was so good about the stupid book. After the chapter I was stunned. I turned around in Kakashi's lap and straddled his waist, staring down at him with a frown. "You know this book has a lot of interesting ways to have. We should try some of them." Kakashi looked shocked before his mask suddenly started to get soaked in blood. I frowned, worried for my mate's health, and peeled the mask away from his face to see his nose bleeding. I scowled. "What the hell did I do to deserve you?" he asked before stealing my lips in a bruising kiss. I moaned and rocked my hips into his, seeking friction. "Nothing, you lazy ass pervert. Be glad I love you and then fuck me." I growled into his ear after a particularly hard thrust against his rapidly stiffening member. He grunted before flipping me onto my back on the couch, smirking down at me with a lustful glint in his eye. "Your wish is my command, my beautiful mate," he whispered huskily before crashing his lips against mine, working fast as he unbuttoned his and my pants to pull them down just enough so he could rub our ass together. I panted against his lips, refusing to let him pull back so he could work quicker, and continued to ravish his addicting lips. Once Kakashi and I were free of any annoying articles of clothing, he quickly stretched out my hole, smirking when he noticed it had tightened up once again so it was as tight as before my week-long heat, and then spat on his palm to lube himself up. I whined as I raised my hips, begging to be fucked by my lifelong mate who so eagerly seated himself inside me. He sighed in bliss, smirking lazily down at me. "Hope I didn't poke the baby, ha ha ha." I giggled at his lame comment, then pulled him back to my lips for another needy kiss. "Don't worry, our little baby is strong, so fuck me as hard as you can, Tilda." His eyes widened before he smirked, pulling back before slamming back into me so hard the couch groaned under us. We ignored the protesting old couch and continued to fuck like rabbits, hard and fast until we were spent, of both cum and energy. Kakashi gently cleaned us up and dressed us before lifting my tired body from the broken couch that groaned and crumbled a little more once I was lifted off. "Seems like the couch couldn't take it. Damn, you're so hot," I muttered as I wrapped my legs around his waist and nuzzled his throat. His throat vibrated against my nose as he purred to me, telling me how much he adored me in that simple but soothing noise. "I love you, my little mate," Kakashi whispered to me softly, nipping at my human ear as he walked us down the hallway and away from the broken couch. The day continued uneventfully. I spent most of my time cuddling with Kakashi, who was more than pleased to carry me around all the time, nuzzling and nipping at my neck and ears as we wandered aimlessly down corridors and in rooms which were most likely other teams who have not arrived just yet. It was coming closer to the end of the day when an angry shout came from upstairs. As foxes got curious, so we followed the loud cursing to the Hokage's office and peeked inside. I blushed while Kakashi smirked smugly when he saw her going through the security camera footage, only to stumble upon the couch scene from this morning, which resulted in a broken couch and two very satisfied kitsune. "Someone get me Kakashi and Naruto. Now." Kakashi pushed open the doors and strolled in lazily before any of the hidden ambu in the room could go fetch us. "You called Tsunade-sama?" Kakashi asked lazily, knowing full well what it was for. I hurried in after him, grabbing his hand when I was close enough and hiding slightly behind him as the Hokage turned her angry eyes upon us and started ranting about no public. I whined and hid my head behind Kakashi, taking note of how she skipped the first bit and skipped straight to the actual, so she didn't know I was the one to originally start it. "I'm sorry, Tsunade-sama." Kakashi was just so persistent that I didn't want to disappoint him. My eyes started to water for more effect. I mentally smirked when I saw her eyes soften when she saw me, eyes glistening with unshed tears and lip trembling as if I was about to burst out crying. "Don't worry, Naru, it's not your fault." She walked forward, pushing Kakashi aside to wrap her arms around me and hug me tightly to her chest. I hugged her back, sniffling so I'd truly have her heart in my hands, and smirked over at Kakashi, who was slack-jawed. I pulled back from Tsunade, smiling shyly and sniffling once more. "Don't worry, Tsunade-sama. I'll punish him accordingly and make him pay for a new couch," I said with childish determination burning in my eyes. She grinned at me and ruffled my hair, gently pushing me out of the office with a soft, "Just don't let it happen again," and then promptly kicked Kakashi out of her room and slammed her door shut in his face. He turned his eye up at me and scowled. "Traitor," I smirked at him, standing on my tiptoes so I could kiss his cheek, and then I turned around, winking at him seductively as I walked down the hall. "Oh well, come Kakashi. It's time for your punishment." I lured him forward with a crook of my finger, smirking slyly when I watched him chase after me like a lovesick puppy. "He's so cute." Tsunade stared at the closed door with folded arms, thinking to herself when suddenly, her mind skidded to a halt and she gaped at the door like a fish out of water. "Wait a minute. That kitsune tricked me. He's over 7,000 years old. He wouldn't cry just because he got caught having in the lounge." "Fuck," she cursed as she slammed her fist down in her desk, swearing at all the gods she could think of for putting the kitsune in her village to deal with. "These next exams are not a team effort, so it does not matter if your teammates do not pass. I want to congratulate everyone on making it this far, but because of so many of you participating in this exam, there will have to be an elimination round. Your names will be selected at random and paired with another random participant. Any deaths will lead you to be disqualified. Good luck." And with those words the Hokage stepped back and a giant monitor appeared out of the wall, flicking through names before settling on a random pair, choosing them as the first ninja to battle. The battles all went the same except Gaara did not crush Lee, only held him until he fell unconscious. Sasuke didn't have the curse mark but still won. Sakura and Ino are still equally as useless. Naruto stayed quiet during Hinata and Neji's fight, and now it's Naruto's fight, yay. Naruto and Kiba's name came up on the screen. With a whine from Akamaru and Kiba, the two pups jumped down and landed in the arena with a dramatic cloud of dust puffing up before settling, showing Kiba with Akamaru by his side with his head held low, whimpering to his master. Naruto made his way calmly down the steps and into the arena, smiling gently at Kiba, who looked away with a guilty expression. Naruto sighed and shook his head before stopping in front of Kiba and his loyal nindog. "Naruto, please forfeit. We don't want to hurt you, and 2 against 1 is unfair," Kiba pleaded quietly, frowning when Naruto only sighed heavily and frowned at him. "If you wish it to be a fair fight, then I can make it one, but Kiba, if you hold back on me I will hurt you even more than is necessary," Naruto warned, then turned to the rails up high above them. He gave a loud, piercing whistle that left everyone confused until Green stood from Anko's side and jumped into the ring. People started to make a fuss, shouting that he had no right to bring someone else's nin animal into their fight. Anko growled at everyone, shouting, causing everyone to shut up and stare at the angry woman in surprise. "They aren't my nin foxes. They hang out with me and go on missions with me, but they aren't mine. Mama has raised and trained those kits into the fine nin foxes there today, so technically they're his nin foxes and I am just borrowing them," she explained angrily, scowling at everyone's confused looks and smiling down at her mama, who smiled up at her in gratitude. Naruto cleared his throat to gain everyone's attention. "Now that it is evenly matched, Kiba, are you ready to start the fight?" Kiba nodded, and so with a loud shout from the exam leader everything shot into action. Green bolted towards Akamaru with blinding speed, tackling him away from Kiba's side while Naruto slowly walked towards the frozen dog boy. "Kiba tilde," Naruto purred. With that one word Kiba's mind went blank and his expression became one of lust and admiration. "You are in my trap tilde," Naruto purred as he walked closer, pulling out a kunai as he walked, keeping a close eye on the dog boy as well as his four-legged companion. "Come closer tilde." Kiba followed Naruto's instructions, scrambling closer like a lovesick puppy while Naruto held out his arms, wrapping them around Kiba's shoulders, slowly but surely enveloping him in his scent that drew the dog boy into such a haze. Naruto pressed the kunai to Kiba's throat, who whined and pressed into the sharp blade harder until a thin line of blood started to seep from the cut. "Hush now, pup, surrender and you will be free," Kiba whined and nodded, begging to be free even if he had no idea of what he will be freed from. "Please, I forfeit, so please, set me free," Kiba begged pitifully, and just like that, he was knocked unconscious. Naruto stepped away from Kiba. The whole stadium was silent as the examiner announced that Naruto passed, and Naruto turned to leave. Before Naruto left the stadium to return to Kakashi's side, he called over his kid, who jumped off of the pinned dog and trotted happily over to his mama. He licked Naruto's hand before running up the steps to be with his siblings. Walking up the steps was uneventful, but when Naruto finally reached his peers, he was bombarded with questions and disbelieving looks. The one look he didn't like was the glare sent his way by Kakashi, whose possessiveness practically radiated off of him. Naruto answered as many questions as he could without giving too much away, and then he carefully crept over to Kakashi, who was seething, his back turned to Naruto, but Naruto noticed how tense he was and he could smell the jealousy and anger rolling off of him in waves. Naruto bit his lip nervously, creeping closer to Kakashi without a sound as to not annoy his alpha any further. When he finally stood in front of his mate's back, he reluctantly reached out his hand and placed it against Kakashi's tense shoulders, turning him slowly to face him just in case he snapped and attacked him. A kitsune can be very possessive of its mate and kits. It's even worse if said mate is with an unborn kid and seducing another unmarked male. Kakashi turned his furious fox-like eyes upon Naruto, who flinched, lowering his head when Kakashi growled at him and grabbed his upper arm roughly. "Mine," he growled angrily before shoving Naruto up against the wall while pulling down his mask and sunk his enlarged teeth into Naruto's neck. Naruto cried out, muffling his own shout of pain with his hand as Kakashi clenched down harder, causing his blood to spill into his mouth and around Naruto's neck and shoulder. Naruto raised a shaky hand up and ran his fingers through Kakashi's hair, soothing the taller male even if he was the one in pain. "Kakashi, stop hurting mama," Anko shouted as she ran up to the pair and yanked Kakashi away. He growled at her, blood dripping from his jaw, but Anko just snarled back along with her siblings. "Mama didn't do anything wrong. It's a safety precaution Mama told me about once when I broke into his house while you were showering." A pregnant kitsune would rather charm an enemy than risk her unborn kid getting hurt in a battle. Anko whispered harshly, so not everyone could hear what she said, but Kakashi heard, and a wave of guilt crashed down on his shoulders. Kakashi's eyes flickered over to Naruto, but he quickly looked away when he saw the blood and the slowly healing bite mark on his shoulder. Naruto whined softly in his throat, calling out to Kakashi, though their bond. Kakashi slowly walked up to Naruto, head down and shoulders slumped. Everyone watched in fascinated confusion as Kakashi reluctantly walked up to Naruto and pleaded forgiveness with his eyes. "Don't worry about it, Kakashi. I told Anko so she would be able to stop you doing anything you would regret later on. It's a natural reaction and I don't blame you," Naruto cooed softly, causing some tension to leak out of Kakashi's shoulders. Kakashi gently hugged Naruto, hiding his face and his blood-stained neck. "But I already regret hurting you," he mumbled. Naruto chuckled softly and patted Kakashi's head. "Don't worry about it, hun. Some alpha kitsune have been said to have gone insane with jealousy when their mate seduced a male to save her unborn kit. Once an alpha even cut the baby out of his mate's stomach and killed her. He wallowed in self-pity for the rest of his life before killing himself. Possessiveness is common for such strong creatures such as kitsune, who think of their mates as their other half, so you need not feel threatened by any other male. I will always be yours, Kakashi, and if I am ever unfaithful I would be pleased when you kill me. No one should have their heart broken like that," Naruto whispered in his ear, lovingly purring while nuzzling his lover's silver hair. "Hold your head high, Kakashi. I'm fine and the bite mark has already healed over, so all I need to do is clean off the blood," Naruto told him before lifting his lover's face from his neck and licking his blood away, smiling happily when Kakashi decided to groom him back to get rid of all his blood. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I will never hurt you again." Naruto kissed his lips softly, grinning against them before deepening the kiss. Naruto pulled away with a soft smile, one that sent butterflies fluttering through Kakashi's stomach. "I know you won't, Kakashi. Now let me go so I can line up. Everyone is already down there," Kakashi grunted in annoyance but let Naruto go and watched him like a hawk as Naruto jumped from the rails and lined up with the other contestants who won. After the elimination round was over, the pairs were called once again and they were told they have a month to train for the exams after being given the name to who they will be fighting. Naruto sighed happily as he rested in the Jonin lounge, leaning against Kakashi's chest while Kakashi dozed in and out of sleep. The door opened and the senseis filed in for another day of monitoring their teams and hanging out. Many stopped to stare at Kakashi and Naruto, but a lazy one-eyed glare from Kakashi had them shrugging and moving on. Naruto was content to laze about in a room full of foreign and allied shinobi, but he was acutely aware of Kakashi rapidly becoming alert the more people that came close to the cuddling pair. The sensei from the Mist team went to sit down on the new couch only to freeze and stiffen when a clearly territorial growl tore through Kakashi's throat and roared around the room like thunder on a rainy night. All chatter stopped as everyone in the room watched as the Jonin glared back at Kakashi but moved away nonetheless. Kakashi placed a protective hand over Naruto's stomach and snarled when someone stepped closer to the couch and near his mate. Naruto immediately jumped into action in case his mate attacked and risked waging war on any of the other visiting villages. Kakashi, at the sound of his mate's sweet voice, Kakashi looked down at his mate and purred, letting the soothing rumble echo throughout the room. "Let's go, we can't risk you attacking anyone when your instincts are kicking in," Naruto whispered softly, getting up from the couch but stepped no further from his mate. Kakashi followed him, smiling under his mask as he wrapped his arm around Naruto's waist and led him out of the silent room. As soon as they left, one of the visiting shinobi crossed his arms over his chest and scoffed. "That was weird. What's wrong with him?" No one responded, and so the others went back to what they were doing beforehand. Naruto obediently followed Kakashi back to his room and watched from the bed as Kakashi secured the room by laying various traps at all the openings including the door. Naruto sighed as he laid down and waited until Kakashi pulled him onto his chest and started to nuzzle his neck. "I feel strange," Kakashi admitted at last. Naruto was silent for a moment before he grabbed Kakashi's hand and laid it over his flat stomach. "Your instincts are kicking in, the alpha in you can sense that I'm pregnant and it's working overtime to keep me safe," Naruto finally explained. He urged Kakashi's chakra to coat his hand before pressing it more firmly against his stomach. Kakashi gasped and smiled into Naruto's hair as he felt his growing child for the first time. "Congratulations Kakashi-koi, you're the proud father of my first kid," Naruto purred when Kakashi wrapped his arms around him tightly and sighed happily. "Naruto, I love you so much." Naruto's smile brightened until it was blinding before he turned his head and pressed his lips against Kakashi's covered chin. "I love you too," he whispered, letting the sleepy haze lead him to rest. Naruto woke again with a smile on his face, snuggling into Kakashi's warm chest as he allowed his mind to lazily wake up fully. "Good morning Koi," Kakashi whispered against Naruto's hair, causing him to purr sleepily. "Lady Hokage has requested our presence. She wants an update on your health, so she's going to look you over herself." Naruto nodded and rolled out of bed, ignoring Kakashi's loud grunt when he squished him to get to the edge of the bed. "We should go now. We only have today to pack up and leave the forest before everyone who passed goes off to train." Naruto gently nudged Kakashi out of bed, causing another loud groan and an even louder huff as he forced himself to get cleaned up and ready to see the Hokage. Kakashi whined childishly as Naruto dragged him down the halls and into the Hokage's temporary office. "Yo, we are here for my checkup," Naruto said as he burst into the room and practically flung Kakashi into a seat, following him down and sitting in his lap. Tsunade raised her eyebrow but ignored the rude entrance to focus on analyzing Naruto from his seat in Kakashi's lap. "You appear healthy. How long did you say your pregnancy would last?" Naruto hummed while resting his head on Kakashi's shoulder. A demon's pregnancy lasts different periods of time depending on the type of demon, but fox demon pregnancy lasts roughly 2 months. Kakashi perked up and started to rub Naruto's stomach happily. "So that means in 2 months I will be a papa?" Naruto giggled and nodded, purring at his mate's loving touch. "Alright lovebirds, break it up. I'm going to be checking on your progress constantly throughout your pregnancy, so if you're too far along into the pregnancy by the time the exam comes along, I will have to force you to forfeit." Naruto sighed but nodded in understanding. Tsunade pulled out her celebratory sake and took a generous sip. I understand, and I prefer to be called Falcon. Thank you very much, Tsunade. Mid-sip, ended up spraying her sake all over her desk in surprise when Naruto's words finally registered. Idiot. I'm giving you maternity leave, so no missions until your baby is up and causing havoc. Got it, Naruto? Naruto nodded, smiling brightly as he placed a small hand over Kakashi's. Thank you, Tsunade, he said gratefully before standing up and giving her a hug. I'm going to make you my baby's grandma. Tsunade stiffened before relaxing with a warm smile on her lips. Thanks, brat, she whispered affectionately while hugging him back. Naruto pulled away with a warm smile on his face, then he skipped over to Kakashi and grabbed his hand. Let's go, Kaka. I'm going to go tell Sakura. I promised I would. Kakashi allowed Naruto to drag him down the halls and into the team's shared rooms to see Sakura and Sasuke getting ready to leave. Naruto slammed the door against the wall and called into the room excitedly. Sakura tilde guess what? Sakura and Sasuke looked up from their packs to stare at Naruto and Kakashi in confusion. I'm pregnant. Sakura squealed happily and ran over to Naruto, wrapping her arms around Naruto delicately while bouncing up and down. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you and Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his head like Naruto tended to do when he was nervous or got busted for something. Thanks, Sakura, he said awkwardly while Naruto hugged her back tightly and chirped out a thanks. Sasuke walked over to his teammates and gave Naruto a nod and a smirk to Kakashi. You've only been together for a week and he's already knocked up. I can't say I'm too surprised, he teased lightly before tuning to Naruto, who watched the exchange with a fond smile. Congratulations, Dobi. Look after the kitsune brat well. Naruto nodded happily before pulling the startled Sasuke into a hug. Kakashi suppressed a growl and instead only slightly narrowed his eyes. You guys are gonna be their uncle and auntie, right? Sakura nodded happily and squealed again while Sasuke slowly nodded his head, dazed with the promise of being an uncle, someone the kid could look up to. A faint blush covered Sasuke's cheeks at the thought, but no one noticed since Naruto was already dragging Kakashi away with the shout that they were going to finish packing up. Sasuke stood there for another minute before he whispered to himself, I'm going to be an uncle. -1 month later. Naruto groaned as he hobbled up the stairs to the viewing area, Kakashi walking slowly behind him in case he fell. Sakura chatted like an overexcited bird as she led the way, not noticing Naruto's slow pace as she took the stairs easily while Naruto slowly dropped back. After the second pause for rest, he turned to Kakashi with tired eyes. Kaka, help me? Kakashi grinned behind his mask as he easily scooped his oversized mate into his arms and swiftly scaled the stairs, ignoring all the whispers and eyes focused on him and his mate. Kakashi happily sat down next to Guy and Sakura with Naruto curled up protectively around his bloated stomach on his lap. Wow, Naruto-kun, you seem to have gained some weight. Guy yelled while pointing at Naruto's bulging stomach area. Naruto's eyes filled with tears, causing Kakashi to panic. His tears soon turned to anger, and not even a second later Guy was lying on the ground in the middle of the arena, dazed and in pain, with Naruto standing triumphantly on the railing surrounding it. I'm not fat, you jerk. How dare you, come back up here so I can slap you silly, you bowl-cut, spandex-wearing freak. Naruto roared. Kakashi came up behind him and gently grasped his hips as to not startle him. Come on, Naru, you're not fat, honey. Come down here, you look perfect the way you are. Naruto smiled warmly down at Kakashi and allowed him to lift him down from the railing and into his arms again. I don't know how you can send a full-grown man flying with a single punch but not be able to make it up a flight of stairs. Kakashi mumbled to himself as he carried Naruto back to his seat and sat down again. A moment later and the chair next to them was once again occupied, but this time by a grinning Anko, green and yellow, lying at her feet. Naruto looks over at his kits and smiled. How are my kits doing? I haven't seen you around lately, the muttered, because I'm not suicidal, was ignored while Anko thought up an excuse to tell her precious mama that the reason they haven't been around was because of his crazy mood swings. We've been looking for a present for the baby. We're going to have a new sibling, so we want to find the perfect gift for them. Anko mentally applauded herself and looked over to her mom, seeing Kakashi give her the thumbs up behind his back. Oh, that's so sweet of you guys. I can't wait to see it, so be sure to bring it around after the tournament. Anko, green and yellow nodded their heads furiously before they all slipped away unnoticed a moment later to go scrounge up the perfect gift. Naruto turned his attention to the arena when the speaker stepped forward. Everyone settled down in their seats to listen. The first match will be Sasuke vs Gaara. Will the participants please step forward? Sasuke and Gaara stepped forward while all the other Chunin hopefuls jumped up to their viewing sections and leant against the railings Naruto stood on not so long ago to watch. The fight started out rather uneventful. Gaara's sand blocked every attack Sasuke sent his way, and now without the insane raccoon barking in his ear his attacks were much more controlled and thought out, whereas before he simply tried to crush them in his sand. Gaara went through great lengths to not kill Sasuke as he flittered around the arena, obviously because he is Naruto's teammate and he didn't want to upset his savior. Yay! Go Sasuke! Go Gaara! Naruto cheered, suddenly standing beside Shikamaru, who turned his lazy eyes upon him before sighing, muttering a troublesome under his breath. Kakashi sighed, jumping over to his very sneaky mate. Naruto, shouldn't you be cheering for Sasuke only? Kakashi asked as he watched his mate watch the fight excitedly. Why should I have to cheer for only one person when it's clear Gaara is trying his very best too? Naruto spun around to face Kakashi with a large grin. Don't you think? Kakashi immediately nodded, choosing to ignore the whispered, whipped, that came from his left, suspiciously close to Kiba and Shino. Of course sweetie, you cheer for whoever you want. Naruto grinned wider and turned back to cheer for Sasuke and Gaara. Kakashi slumped his shoulders when he noticed Shikamaru staring at him. His mood swings are things of horror, was all he offered as explanation as to why he agreed so easily to Naruto's every word. After the fight which left Gaara as the victor, many others fought and lost. It wasn't until the exam was almost over did the large screen with the fighter's name on it flicked and scrolled through the names only to land on two particular names. Neji and Naruto. Kakashi snarled at the thought of his mate having to fight just to entertain and show off the village, but before he could speak up Naruto was already down in the arena, standing across from Neji, who looked a little more than put out with his opponent's state. Naruto! Tsunade yelled, standing up from her chair and stomping over to the railing to glower dangerously down at the smiling blonde. Naruto, you can't fight in your condition, forfeit now. She demanded. Naruto turned to look up at her before he pouted. She jerked back as if slapped before leaning forward again to scowl down at the pregnant kitsune. Naruto! She growled out warningly. Naruto simply smiled and waved up at her, a cheeky grin set in place. Oh please Tsunade, I'm not due until another month, so calm down and let me fight. This is nothing compared to my natural habitat. And besides, I need some exercise, I think I'm getting a little chubby. After he said all he needed to say, he turned to the man who starts the match and gave him a glare that rivaled the Uchiha's. The man gulped loudly before nodding his head and shouting out, begging, quickly jumping up to the railing. Neji hesitated, glancing down at Naruto's protruding stomach. Naruto, you're not fit to fight, I will not fight you with such an obvious disadvantage, he said with a scoff. Kakashi scowled at the white-eyed boy, suddenly feeling defensive of his mate, so he leant over the railing slightly and yelled down at him. What, you scared a pregnant boy will defeat you? Naruto looked up at him with shining eyes full of love and respect. Kakashi, he called out lovingly. Kakashi smiled down at him before turning a glare to Neji, who fumed in anger. Naruto cannot defeat me even if he was not handicapped. Naruto gasped, spinning around to glower at Neji, who blinked in surprise. My child is not a handicap, you blind-eyed mole. And with that Naruto shot forward with speed that startled everyone watching. The civilians and shinobi alike watched with startled fascination as Neji was forced to defend himself. Naruto rained down hits and kicks towards the long-haired boy, who focused more on blocking, not wanting to risk killing the child growing inside his opponent's stomach. This isn't fair, Naruto huffed, jumping into the air with his leg snapping out. Neji raised his arm to block the kick, only for the kick to be much more powerful than he anticipated. He was sent sailing through the air only to crash into the wall while Naruto landed softly on his feet. Naruto groaned loudly as he lifted his foot, taking off his shoes and gently massaging his sore feet. Hun, he called up to Kakashi, who hummed back down at him to indicate he was listening. After this I want a foot rub. My feet are killing me, Kakashi chuckled to himself before answering. Okay sweetie, don't strain yourself. Naruto waved him off and looked into the cloud of dust that begun to settle around the wall he kicked Neji into. Neji stumbled out of the wall, panting harshly and totally pissed. "You mock our fight?" he accused. Naruto scowled at him, crossing his arms over his chest to get his point across. "You started it. You mocked my fighting abilities just because I'm pregnant. That's beyond insulting, you brat." Naruto huffed in annoyance before unfolding his arms and putting his hands on his hips instead. "Just because a shinobi is pregnant doesn't mean you should underestimate them. Listen closely, Neji, because this is very important. No matter how an enemy looks at the beginning of the fight, if you underestimate them, I guarantee you will be dead by the end of it. Shinobi are killers. You do not underestimate someone who is fully loaded with weapons, so you should not underestimate the frail-looking ones." Neji fumed at being lectured, charging at Naruto in blind anger while simultaneously getting ready to attack. "Fine, I will go full out then. It's not my fault if your baby dies," he snarled before crashing into Naruto, or what he thought was Naruto. From across the arena, the real Naruto snickered when his clone blew up in Neji's face. "You actually think I would put my baby in danger? Foolish Neji, this fight will be fought from a distance." Naruto crossed his fingers in a cross sign even if it wasn't needed. 4 clones appeared surrounding him before rushing towards Neji. Neji destroyed them all, charging towards the real Naruto and aiming a strike at his chest only for his hand to be deflected at the last moment. Neji's eyes widened as he was kicked across the arena once again. "You're kind of stupid, Neji. I said this was a long-distance fight. Try not to injure me, okay?" Naruto said sweetly before suddenly Neji was thrown back across the arena by an invisible force that sent him crashing into the wall next to Naruto. Naruto turned his head and grinned down at him as he groaned and stumbled back onto his feet. "You're a little hot-headed, don't you think?" Naruto said offhandedly, tilting his head sharply. Neji's body followed the tilt of his head and went flying across the arena again. He managed to catch himself before he could slam into the wall, but that didn't stop him from face-planting when he went to go step forward. The invisible force continued to play with Neji, who was starting to get desperate. In a vain attempt at defeating Naruto, he pulled his trump card. He started to spin, calling out increasing numbers of palm strikes as the rotation got stronger and the invisible force was seemingly fought off. When Neji came out of his spin, he charged at Naruto and aimed another strike at his chest, his other hand dropping towards his stomach on habit. A centimeter away from landing the blow, the invisible force was back and it was wrapped tightly around Neji's arms, stopping any movement from them whatsoever. Neji looked up into Naruto's face only for his own to pale when he saw the utterly enraged expression on Naruto's face. "You went to kill my baby with that strike," Naruto whispered. He leant forward slightly so he could whisper into Neji's ear. "Let's see how good you fight without your arms." And then his arms were forced to bend at an awkward angle and Neji screamed out in pain as a sickening snap echoed around the arena. He was thrown against the ground harshly before the force slammed down on his body and started to crush him. Neji wheezed and struggled, but he couldn't fight what he couldn't see, and no one could ever see the wind. A cruel smirk appeared on Naruto's face as the wind swirled around his form protectively. "I have absolute control over the air. Let's see how you struggle against something you can't punch." And then suddenly Neji couldn't breathe because there was no air filling his lungs, and his struggles slowly begun to lose their strength until he stopped struggling altogether and he was left trembling on the floor, suffocating with no hope of survival. With a snap of his finger, the air filled Neji's lungs once again and the crushing weight that held him down was gone and he could breathe again. The referee quickly called the match, the winner being Naruto of Hokage. Naruto walked over to Neji, who flinched upon seeing him crouch down next to his trembling form. "I'm sorry, Neji, you should take my lesson to heart. Never underestimate a shinobi no matter what." Naruto heaved himself to his feet and like a switch he was that smiling, hobbling pregnant Kitsune again, who called up to Kakashi with a playful whine of his feet being sore. As Neji was being carted away in a stretcher by the medics, he couldn't help but to be scared of the blonde's massive influence over something everyone relied on every second of the day. He learnt 2 things that day: never piss of Naruto, and never underestimate a shinobi, no matter how roughed up or sickly they appear. Naruto hummed to himself happily as he hobbled back up the stairs leading back to the viewing area. Upon finally reaching the clutter of fellow peers, he was met with odd and slightly fearful expressions. Naruto grinned at them before waddling past them all to embrace his mate who purred once he had him back in his strong arms. "You did well, sweetie, how about that foot rub?" Naruto nodded with a relieved sigh when Kakashi gently eased him into a seat and lifted his throbbing feet into his lap to gently massage away the pains. Naruto practically melted into his seat only to stiffen in alarm when suddenly the sky was raining white feathers and the stadium was thrown into chaos. Naruto easily broke the genjutsu trying to put him to sleep and gently stood up when he saw Sound Nen and Sand Nen invading the stadium, battling Ambu and other shinobi who tried to stop them from destroying the village. Kakashi gently wrapped his arms around Naruto's hips and steered him over to the other rookies who awaited orders, stunned and some frozen to the spot. Naruto sighed upon seeing their fearful gazes directed at all the blood and chaos now flooding the stadium. "Pay attention, people," Naruto snapped. All eyes fell to him, so he cleared his throat, absent-mindedly rubbing his stomach with his other hand supporting his back. "You have been given orders to protect the civilians and get them to safety, intercept and kill anyone who tries to harm the civilians." They all nodded wordlessly and went to work to do exactly that. Kakashi chuckled while nuzzling his hair. "We should get you to safety. One fight should be enough excitement for today." Naruto scoffed at his mate as he stubbornly waddled his way through the fleeing crowd to the Hokage box where Tsunade was shouting at her old teammate, Orochimaru. Gaara appeared before him with an apologetic gleam in his eyes which made Naruto smile. "I tried to convince everyone that it was wrong to attack the leaf, but they did not listen to me. I am sorry, Naruto. I shall instead protect you and your unborn kid." Naruto nodded happily, still waddling into the Hokage box. "Don't worry, dear. It's not your fault Orochimaru pretended to be your father and lead your village to attacking mine, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to kill them all if they do not evacuate." Gaara nodded, spearing a fellow Sand Nen in the chest with his sand spike. Naruto waddled up next to Tsunade who glowered down at him. She received a wide grin that forced his eyes to squint for her efforts. "Give me orders, Tsunade. If I transform into my demon form I can chase them all away." Tsunade sighed heavily but nodded her head in agreement. "Fine. Kill any Sound Nen you see but give the sand a chance to escape. I think I can still salvage our relationship with them if we let most of them live." Naruto grinned, sparing a second to wink at Orochimaru before jumping out of the box, shifting and growing as he fell until he landed in the form of an overly large nine-tailed fox that continued to grow and grow until it was the same size as Kurama was on that night 15 years ago. RRRRRRRRRR. Naruto's thunderous roar stilled the entire village. The evacuated villagers huddled together inside the Hokage mountain while the shinobi trembled and quivered, remembering the flashes of memory from that night the Kyuubi attacked. Kakashi jumped up on top of Naruto's large head, using chakra to stay on as he transformed into his half-fox form, 4 silver tails and all. Everyone turned to the large fox standing carefully but protectively over the village before all hell broke loose and the invading ninja turned to flee. Naruto made quick work of any Sound Nen he saw. A single swipe of his tail had over 100 of them killed and he used his manipulation over the air to suffocate the rest he could not reach without destroying half of the village. "Leave now, Sand Nen, or face the same fate." Naruto's demonic voice boomed throughout the village, the volume enough to have shinobi that were close enough clutching at their heads, hands held over their ears lest their eardrums burst. Upon hearing the threat the Sand Nen fled as quickly as they appeared. 3 large snake summons were summoned to ensure their escape, but they were easily destroyed by Naruto, his teeth effortlessly ripping them apart and tearing them in two with his many tails. As soon as the threat to the village was gone, Naruto started to shrink rapidly until he was the size of a house, which was when Kakashi leapt off of him and landed in front of the magnificent fox. Naruto returned to the size of his 15-year-old self and then transformed back into a human, partly anyway. His fox ears twitched when he heard the sound of approaching shinobi, so he quickly made his way over to Kakashi and grabbed his arm nervously. "I don't think I really thought that through," Naruto admitted sheepishly. Kakashi snorted in amusement before wrapping his arms around his mate's waist and pulling him closer. "Don't worry, Orochimaru would have fled as soon as he saw his Sound Nen being crushed by you, and if he didn't I'm sure Lady Tsunade would have made sure he was running with his tail in between his legs," Kakashi said as he straightened up when they were suddenly surrounded by shinobi, all pointing weapons at them with weary eyes trained on them. Don't resist, demons, shouted a younger shinobi nervously. Naruto snorted in mock amusement before narrowing his eyes at him. Oh please, if I wished it you would all be dead right now. Every creature needs to breath after all. Everyone stiffened at his threat but Naruto didn't move to go through with it, not that he needed to move to crush them all. Where's Tsunade? Naruto asked instead. Tsunade appeared a second later, looking ruffled and more than a little pissed. Stand down you idiots. You're pointing your weapons at the person you should be thanking that you're still alive. She hissed before walking up to Naruto and checking him over for any injuries. Good to see you're still alive brat, she said gruffly but affectionately. Naruto smiled up at her, leaning back into Kakashi's chest before answering. Thanks, same as you Tsunade. I think you better order a meeting for those old coots in the council, Tsunade snorted in annoyed amusement. You're the last person who should be calling others old, you ancient furball, Naruto shrugged before looking around warily. But you're right, those annoying council members will be blowing a fuse if I don't sort this out quickly. Tsunade agreed, turning around and leading the couple into the Hokage tower where the impatient council waited for her already. Sheesh, they're quick to rip me a new one, she muttered as she took her seat at the head of the table. Naruto and Kakashi standing behind her chair obediently. What's the meaning of this Tsunade? Is the Kyuubi brat not in control of the Kyuubi? Snapped one of the older civilian council members. Tsunade flashed a glare at the man but answered his question nonetheless. He's in perfect control, that wasn't even the Kyuubi's power he was using so shut your trap. She snapped back before leaning her elbows against the table and rubbing her temples. The day I became Hokage I formed a contract with the Kyuubi no Kitsune's younger sibling. She started to explain only to be cut off by another infuriated council member. What? That's outrageous. The Kyuubi is a life form of chakra, it does not have siblings unless you count the other 8-tailed beasts. Tsunade shot him an annoyed look but nodded towards Naruto so he stepped forward and grinned at them all. You humans think you're right all the time. Honestly I'm insulted, he said offhandedly before crossing his arms over his chest to glower at them all. His mood taking a quick 180. My brother and I are demons, as are all the other tailed beasts. The reason you think we are life forms of chakra is because every demon is insanity powerful. The lowest class demon is high-leveled Ambu at least. Our stores of chakra outclass anything you humans could obtain in 10 lifetimes, so we are able to cloak our own chakra around our bodies and turn into a sort of ghost-like form that, although is incredibly hard to injure, can allow you humans to seal us away. The day of the attack I followed my brother who was being controlled by one of your precious Uchiha, so when he attacked I transformed into a newborn baby. Your Hokage picked me up and sealed my brother inside of my body. Naruto rubbed his stomach where a seal appeared under the oversized shirt. I can still rip him out of the seal but that would kill my child so I won't be doing that anytime soon. I made a contract with Tsunade as soon as she became Hokage because I knew you council members would flip if you found out about me and would try to kill me and possibly my children, so as long as the contract still stands I will be your own personal weapon with the power to destroy every life form on this miserable earth. Do not abuse your power over me mortals or I will be forced to cancel the contract, destroy this corrupt village and flee to my motherland. The council sat in silence as they absorbed this new information. Daozo spoke up after a tense 5 minutes of heavy silence. We should counter-attack the sand. With the demon's power we can obliterate the village even if they do have the one-tailed beast. Tsunade groaned loudly before shooting the old warhawk a fierce glare. What did he just say? Don't abuse the contract or he will wipe out this entire village. I ordered Naruto to allow the majority of the sand to escape so we could form another, stronger alliance with the sand, not to destroy them in their own village. She slammed her hands on the table and scowled at everyone sitting at the table. This is exactly the reason I didn't inform you of Naruto's role in the village beforehand. A civilian member stood up and started screaming back at Tsunade. If you're so reluctant to use the demon as a weapon then maybe we should elect a new Hokage. Naruto growled, silencing everyone in the room. Then the terms of the contract will have been breached. I am Tsunade's to use. She is the leader of the village, not you council members. You are here to help govern the village, and to be perfectly honest you civilian members should not even be here in this meeting. The village was under attack not even 2 hours ago and already you vultures are swooping in to try and pressure Tsunade into doing things she obviously disapproved of. You have no say in a war room, so be quiet or I will have to be forced to rip out your tongues so you will never have a say in any matters ever again. The room was suddenly filled with Naruto's killing intent, which knocked out the majority of the civilian council. Naruto turned to the shinobi side of the table and regarded them with hard eyes. The terms of the contract clearly state that as long as Tsunade is in power, I will aid this village in any course of action Tsunade chooses to make. In case of an untimely death, I will consider renewing the contract with the new appointed Hokage, but that is only if I see them worthy of my power at their fingertips. My life is to be lived out as a normal shinobi until Tsunade's reign is over, and then I will take my mate and children to return to my previous home. The council room was silent once again before the head of the Inazaka clan spoke up, her voice strong and confident. So you're saying that as long as Lady Tsunade is in control of the village, you will continue to protect and fight for the village? Naruto simply nodded before flashing a cheeky grin at her. Of course, that also means you will have some control over what my children do when they have grown old enough to fight for themselves. I plan on making a lot of children. At this, Naruto threw a lustful look over his shoulder at a leering Kakashi who came up behind him and wrapped his arms around Naruto's waist. I would be glad to fill you with as many children as you want. He purred in Naruto's fox ear, which twitched before lying flat against his hair, a show of submission when Kakashi gently nipped at it. Now that you're a kitsune, you should be able to give me more than one child at a time. I expect my next litter to give me many kits, Naruto purred back, rubbing his cheek against Kakashi's covered one. Many of the council members looked away in embarrassment while they practically rutted against each other like horny dogs. That's enough, you horn foxes. Go back to your own house to rut, but don't do it in front of me, and stop fucking on my couches. Tsunade growled before shooing them out of the room, as well as the other conscious council members. You heard the lady, Kakashi. Take me home and then take me, Naruto said with a snicker. Kakashi happily obliged, scooping Naruto into his arms and hightailing it out of there as fast as he could. THSTA all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.